All right. Good afternoon, everyone. This is the regular board meeting of the Board of Directors of the East Bay Regional Park District on March 15, 2022, beginning at 1:01 on time. And with that, I'd like to ask the clerk to call the roll of the board.
Yes, President Coffey. Director Rosario.
Here.
Director Lane.
Here.
Director Waspy.
Here.
Director Eccles.
Here.
Director Wieskamp.
Aye.
Director Corbett.
Here.
President Coffey.
Here.
General Manager Landreth.
Here.
Deputy General Manager Alvarez.
Here.
General Counsel Virgo.
Here.
AGM Cook. CFO AGM FMS Ocker.
Present.
Chief Chiavaro. AGM Kelchner.
Present.
Okay, I saw you. AGM Kelchner is not here, so it is Lisa Gorgian.
Here.
AGM Johnson. AGM O'Connor.
Here.
I don't think I missed anyone.
That covers staff?
Yes.
All right. Let me look around the room. Would the general manager like to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, please?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. And I've asked Director Waspy to do our Native American acknowledgement for today.
Thank you. The East Bay Regional Park District's headquarters is located within Huichin territory on the unceded lands of the Ohlone Chochenyo-speaking peoples, who have continuously lived upon this land since time immemorial. The lands now encompassed within the boundaries of the East Bay Regional Park District are the ancestral territory of the Ohlone, Bay-Miwok, and Delta Yukut. Today's Ohlone, Bay-Miwok, and Delta Yukut people are thriving, vital members of the Greater Bay Area community. They remain intrinsically connected to the land they have stewarded since time immemorial. So please join us in recognizing and honoring this land and their ancestors, elders, descendants, and all other members of their communities.
Thank you very much. Today's meeting is held pursuant to the Brown Act as amended by AB 361. Board members and staff may participate via phone or video conferencing. This meeting is a hybrid of an in-person attendance with board members, designated staff, and members of the public. We are also providing live audio and video streaming and have provided the public the opportunity to submit written comments and call in for public comments for an item on the staff reports or other agenda items. And we've allowed for email comments that have been circulated and we've read, and people can leave voice messages. With that, we'll move to approval of the agenda. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Director Rosario, Director Wieskamp seconds. And with that, would you call the roll, Madam Clerk?
Yes, Director Coffey.
Aye.
I wanted to do that last. Director Rosario. Director Lane. Director Lane. Aye. Director Waspy.
Aye.
Director Eccles. Director Eccles. I think she might have disappeared. Director Wieskamp.
Aye.
Director Corbett.
Aye.
President Coffey.
Aye.
And I believe Director Eccles bounced off.
She might have been bounced off for some
She'll come back.
point. Yes. I think we'll just keep going.
Okay.
Public comments. Public comments may be submitted one of three ways. And would you, Madam Clerk, explain to us how that's done?
Yes, President Coffey. You can email the clerk's office at yburial@ebparks.org. You can leave a message at 510-544-2016, and we will transcribe your message, or you can simply join the meeting via the Zoom link, which is listed on the agenda, which has been posted on the district's website last Thursday. Public comments will not be read at the meeting, but any written emails or transcribed voice messages will be included in the final board packet All comments and letters received before the deadline yesterday have been distributed to the board and will not be read at the meeting.
Thank you. Do any members of the board have any questions or comments about the procedures? Seeing none, we will move to the next item, which is, I believe,
Which is going to be the public comments. It's out of order.
a public comment on items not on the agenda. Do we have any?
Yes, President Coffey, we do. We have a comment from, I'm not going to go in any order, I'm just what I see. Scott Bartlebow. Sir, if you can come into the meeting and turn on your video if you can, and you have 3 minutes.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you. President Coffey, board members and staff, thank you for the time today. This is a comment on non-agenda item. I wanted to thank you for the district support on the bike bell stations at Brioni's and Crockett Hills. Those are up and running. Also, thank you to REI and Regional Parks Foundation, Juliana Shermer, for support on that. Feedback initially from people at the trailheads has been positive, and they see that as a good addition to the park and a way to reduce trail conflict. BTCEB held a trail work day at the end of February out of Crockett Hills with a number of volunteers out there. We got some good work done, and we've got an upcoming day planned this coming weekend with El Cerrito Middle School. So engaging the youth, future stewards of the parks, and getting them involved. We've also continued safety messaging on sharing trails and being respectful of other users, and continue to put efforts into that area as well. Lastly, we're excited to hear that work is progressing on pilots at Brioni's, and we're hopeful that will bring meaningful change to improve trail experiences for all trail users, while providing narrow trail access for mountain bikes that has been advocated for over 3 decades. So thank you for your time, and thank you for your support.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bartlebow. Our next speaker is ODAI. I don't know if that's your first name or last name. You have 3 minutes.
Yeah, and ODIBS.
Okay,
Thank you, board members, for the opportunity. I'm representing Concord Shiva Murugan Temple, the Hindu religious temple located at Concord Temple. We conducted the pilgrimage walk to the Concord Temple on East Bay Park Iron Horse Trail on January 22nd.
Need to speak a little louder, please.
Oh, sorry. Okay. We conducted a pilgrimage walk to Concord Temple on East Bay Park Iron Horse Trail on January 22nd. And we would like to thank the park officials for the approval of our request and making good arrangements on the trail. At the same time, we from Concord Temple would like to see whether we can sponsor something along this trail that we are using, and want to find out what is the process to do that. Okay, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Our next speaker, I believe, is Joel Schrock. I just see Joel. I think this is Mr. Schrock.
Let's see. Oh, there we go. Yep.
Okay, you have 3 minutes, sir.
All right. Thanks so much. Just coming online. Sorry, I had trouble getting my computer on here. Ladies, forgive me here. Ladies and gentlemen of the board, thanks for the opportunity to speak to you again today. I'm Joel Schrock, the advocacy lead for Bay Area mountain bikers known as Bambi. Our group has now surpassed 9,200 members. Today, I'm here to ask for your leadership. As you know, cyclists has been feeling underrepresented for 20 years now. I believe everyone knows that something should be done to bring balance into our community. And we need that directive to come from the top. We need that directive to come from you. The analogy that I've been using is that mountain bikers are like people on a raft at sea that have pulled up to a cruise ship and are asking to come aboard. But the occupants of the cruise ship aren't certain they want to invite more people on board because they're concerned it might impact their experience. As not to disrupt the passengers, the crew has asked the people already on board to vote and see if these new people should be allowed Unsurprisingly, the various groups already on board cannot reach an agreement, so the people in the raft are left clinging to the side of the ship. This analogy is similar to the process of deferring to the Trail User Working Group and the Park Advisory Committee to develop a solution for the restrictive policy towards cyclists. Existing park users with full access to the park worry that providing access to these new people might disrupt their experience. So it's difficult to reach a consensus, as confirmed by the conclusion of the Trail Users Working Group, which states, ultimately, the disagreement which the working group could not come to consensus on was the presence of bicycles on natural surface trails, end quote. This is why we need the directive to come from the top. It's nearly impossible to get consensus in a group setting with opposing views. We need you, the board of directors, the captains of our ship, to make the judgment call for the crew and visitors to follow. We need you, the board, to provide that leadership to guide the organization. The good news is we're not talking about a cruise ship that's full. We're talking about 125,000 acres of parks. There's plenty of space for everyone. Cyclists aren't asking to take over the existing hiking trails. We would be quite happy if you would just decriminalize riding on well-worn bike trails that have existed for decades, while you develop a more complete and inclusive long-term strategy. Legitimizing these existing trails will see far less impact on the environment than new trail construction. Additionally, since they're already built, there should be little ground to use CEQA as a way to prevent their adoption. And they're already built and ready to ride. They just need new signage. We are asking that something be done soon, in the near term, to address this issue that's gone on for 2 decades. Although our friends at the Bicycle Trails Council of East Bay have been working on this issue for closer to 3 decades now. I'm asking you today to create a roadmap to equitable access that is accessible to the public, one that defines near-term goals that are achievable this year, mid-range goals for next year, and a long-term strategy for all parks and land banks going forward. We need you to assure other park visitors that perceived user conflict or fear of user conflict is greater than actual user conflicts, as stated in the October 19th report from the Trail User Working Group, which states, conflicts among user groups can arise without any actual conflict occurring. In fact, perceived conflict is sometimes greater for people who haven't encountered other user groups on the trail, end quote. We need you to step up and take the leadership role you've been elected to do. We need you to realize that enough is enough, and it's time to take decisive action now to be inclusive of a large and ever-growing user group that has been seeking equitable access to our parks for years. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Schrock.
Thank you.
There are no longer any more public comments for items not on the agenda.
All right, then with that, we will move to the consent calendar. So I will ask the clerk and then individual board members if there are items that need to be pulled at least for discussion or questions, and then whether there are items that need to be pulled for a separate vote. So Yolanda, where are we in terms of
There are no items that need to be pulled on the consent calendar.
for questions or comments?
Item D is a question from Director Lane.
Director Lane?
I just had a comment.
Okay,
Or comment.
go ahead. Item D on the consent calendar.
Item D is a project which is improving handicap and other access for Lake Anza. And I just wanted to say how much I appreciate the fact that we are doing this and we're coming to a conclusion. And thank you, Jim O'Connor and all for this. It lagged a little during COVID, but now it's moving along, and it was needed and is going to be done. So thank you.
Any others that you're aware of?
No,
So I'll look around the room and the screen to see if there are board members who will want to comment on any individual consent items. Director Corbett?
Yes, I just have a quick question. I'm sorry I didn't try to get an answer to this earlier. This is on item B. And my question is just, it looks like we're doing something important, exchanging the use of land in an area where it's necessary. But the resolution that we're passing, it talks about the square foot area, but it doesn't give the specifics exactly of the measurement of it, you know, what part of the land is measured. I'm just asking, will that exist somewhere? Will there be actual measurements of the part of the land where that exchange is? Instead of it's just X square feet.
Who might be able to respond for staff?
This is Lisa Gorgon. Yeah, hi, good afternoon. Directors Lisa Gorgon, Chief of Design and Construction, acting for Christina Kelchner this week. So Rachel Lem is prepared to answer that question, but her Zoom just froze. So I'm waiting for her to get back on, and I think the answer is, oh, she's back. So I think,
Yeah, I'm just asking if we took the actual square measurement of the exact part of land. Yes or no is all I need to answer.
yeah, here she is. Rachel?
Hello.
Hi.
Rachel, did you hear the question?
Oh, she's frozen again.
Lisa?
So I think the answer is yes. And so Director Corbett, we can follow up with the follow-up of the details of that, but I believe, as always, the answer on measurements and because we survey with regard to any acquisition that we're have a transaction with. So we can follow up with a complete sentence later, but
Yeah.
the
And the
answer is
measure,
yes.
so that the measurement exists in our record.
Would you
So
mind
we
repeating
don't
the
have any
question,
issues in the future.
Oh dear, it's from.
Rachel, I think we'll follow up with Director Corbett later after the meeting, but I think we've given her a response.
Okay, thank you, Lisa.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'll continue to look at my colleagues. Any other items on the consent calendar that people would like to discuss? I have none.
Okay, I move we adopt the consent calendar.
It's been moved. Is there a second?
Second.
Director Rosario, second. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Ms. President Coffee, Director Rosario.
Oh, I forgot. Can I interrupt myself? Are there any public comments on items on the consent calendar? You probably would have interrupted me anyway.
No, somebody.
All right, there are none. So let's proceed to the roll call. Thank you.
Director Rosario,
Aye.
Director Lane,
Aye.
Director Waspy,
Aye.
Director Eccles,
Aye.
Director Wieskamp,
Aye.
Director Corbett,
Aye.
and President Coffee.
Aye. All right, so that concludes the consent calendar. The next item on the agenda is item 2, Executive and Legislative Division. This will be our second public hearing, and hopefully we'll be able to vote on approval of our census-driven redistricting of our wards. Eric?
Good afternoon. Eric Wheeler, Chief of Government. Here to introduce the thank Jason Rosenberg and Lisa Ball.
Can't hear you.
Well, he's working on it.
Stay far away. Been helpful in this process.
Still can't hear.
Every 10 years.
Why don't you hold on for a moment? We're working on Eric's microphone.
Great. And if someone could also turn on the board podium camera, because that's off right now, so we can't see him.
Sorry, well, they can't see me.
We're still working on
Sorry about that.
Eric's mic,
Or
technical
can't-
issues.
or
Sorry about
can't.
that.
It's working.
And so we would like to have our consultant, Kristen Parks from NDC, go through her entire presentation and then have a board member discussion afterwards. And hopefully, potentially adopting a final map for the 2022 election. So with that, Kristen, I would like to turn it over to you.
Thank you. Good afternoon, directors. I will be sharing with you a very brief PowerPoint.
Pardon me, Kristen, I think President Coffey, you need to actually open the public hearing.
Oh, I thought I did,
Did
but
you?
in case I missed that, we are now in our public hearing.
Thank you. So you all can see the presentation, hopefully. And we are going to just do a little bit of a review of where we've come in this process. And our timeline began back in August when the 2020 census data was released from the US Census Bureau after a few months of delay. And we have been working with staff and the board to present the demographic data from the census, identify communities of interest, and draft and revise new ward boundary maps. So today is the second public hearing in which the board has the opportunity to choose from the draft maps and adopt a final map. The deadline by law is April 17th, so we are well positioned to meet that deadline. And of course, the first election will be held on November 8th with these new boundary lines that will be adopted for the next 10 years. A quick review of the legal requirements. Most importantly, under federal law, each ward should have equal population, and equal population is defined by the courts as a total deviation of less than 10%. So what that means is the difference between the largest population ward and the smallest population ward should be under 10%. We must also comply with the Federal Voting Rights Act. And we must also avoid drawing any wards where race is the predominant or sole factor. California law says the board may also consider other factors such as topography, geography, communities of interest, compactness, etc. And so with that, we have drafted maps that are legally compliant and also preserve the core of the existing wards and follow the direction we have heard from directors. So 6 maps have been introduced, 5 of those from National Demographics, from your demographer consultant team, and 1 from a member of the public. All of the draft maps meet the basic requirement of equal population. You can see the total deviation is under 10% for all of these maps. At a previous hearing, the board was presented map A and map B and requested revisions to map A. Today, we are presenting 3 maps that incorporate those requested revisions, map A1, A2, and A3. We're also presenting the new public map that has been received. Just to remember the previous, map A and map B, that's here. Map A was the more minimal change map that balanced population while trying to follow the current boundaries as closely as possible. Map B made some more changes, trying to incorporate cities and census places in their entirety where possible into wards. So a quick summary of the requests that we heard from the board at the previous hearing were to explore these options here. So I'm going to go through maps A1, 2, and 3, but it may be helpful to refer to this table to see the variations that we have made here. The first request was to incorporate Kennedy Grove and the Bay Area Ridge Trail into Ward 1. And we have done that in all 3 of these maps. We have also reunited Dublin and Pleasanton whole rather than dividing them, and Newark in all 3 of these maps. We also added Leona Canyon and some of the surrounding residences to Ward 4 in all 3 of these maps. The variation in these maps occurs around Wards 3 and around Ardenwood and Coyote Hills. I will say that the change around the Coyote Hills area does not involve any population moving. So that's why you won't see numbers change when the Coyote Hills area is moved. So starting with map A1, at the top of the screen here, you see a green circle showing that first change that has occurred in all of the maps I'm presenting, that Kennedy Grove and the Bay Area Ridge Trail have been incorporated into Ward 1. So what you see there is the light pink area being Ward 1. And of course, we can zoom in on this on the interactive map to see it more closely. The board packet also includes zoomed in maps for each ward. The second circle that you see on the screen around Ward 4 is the incorporation of Leona Canyon, as well as the residential area around it, primarily following Skyline as the boundary. The third change you see in map A1 is the reunification of Dublin and Pleasanton, and that is simply returning to the current ward boundaries. So from map A, you can see the pink line is what was proposed in map A, which would have split Dublin and Pleasanton between wards 3 and 5. We have reverted that change in all 3 of these maps. So that was map A1. Just to review, it had changes to Ward 1, 4, and 5. So we'll now look at A2. A2 has those same 3 changes we saw in A1, but it also has this change between Ward 3 and 5. That's the orange circle at the bottom of the map here. We have added both Coyote Hills and the Ardenwood Park and surrounding residences into District 3 here. So that is another option. That's the only difference between map A1 and A2. So you can see those check marks there. A2 is the map that's sort of all of the changes on the table, every single possible one. So we can add and remove those changes at the direction of the board. A3 will be very similar to A2, but we are simply removing Coyote Hills and only adding into Ward 3, Ardenwood, and the surrounding residences. So that is, again, that orange circle at the bottom of the screen. Now, the demographics between map A2 and A3 are identical because the only difference is Coyote Hills area, which is 0 population. So if you notice that those numbers are the same, that is in fact intentional. We also received a map from a member of the public. And so you can see here the changes that are proposed in this map, the black lines being the current ward boundaries and the colored shaded areas being the new ward boundaries as proposed by the author of Public Map 1. There are significant changes proposed in this map, as you can see. This map, however, is population balanced and therefore meets the most basic legal requirement. We can also look at this map more closely if there are questions from the directors. With that, I will stop and take any questions.
Eric, did you want to add anything?
Just that this is the time where we would like for you all to present or ask questions. If you have any suggestions or potentially changes, this is a public hearing deliberation of the 3 maps that were presented. And Kristen will stay on to listen for feedback to see if there's additional modifications that you all would like to make.
Okay, I think what we should do is turn it over to members of the board to, at first, just ask questions. If we have questions of Kristen and want to look closer at any of the maps and any of the boundaries, let's take that first, those type of questions and comments that are appropriate. And then let's turn it over for public comment so we can hear from members of the public, and then come back to the board to actually deliberate. Does that make sense? Okay, so at this time, I'm going to look among members of the board for questions of Kristen concerning the different maps that she's presented. Director Rosario.
Yeah, thank you, Kristen. My question is, in looking at Leona, I was thinking it might make more sense to keep Leona in Ward 2, just because of the boundary lines of Skyline Boulevard and Keller. And would that skew the numbers in an adverse way?
That's a great question. We actually looked at that, and it's only a few thousand people that move. And so that would not throw the population out of balance. It would still remain with a total deviation of under 8%.
Yeah, I think that's my only question.
Thank you. Other questions from the board?
Yes.
Director Corbett.
Thank you, Director Rosario. I agree with you. I think that makes most sense, just geographically, and numbers wise. I'm glad to hear it makes sense too. So I'm fine with that. And I'm sorry I was not here for the entire meeting last week, or at the last, not at the last meeting, but could we take a look real quick at the map in the area that includes District 4, whichever map makes the most sense. Right? Obviously, District 4 is almost the same as it has been in all of the maps. But if we could just look at the part of the map closer to Lake Chabot, I know obviously because the type of map lines that are in that area, it doesn't really make it possible to change that too much either. I was wondering if there was a possibility of having just a little bit more of Lake Chabot, since there's a little tiny part of it in District 4. And I think there was a discussion that a little bit of it was okay up to the side of where there's those other mapping type lines are that you can't cross. And I'd like us to just take a quick look at that and see what that is.
Absolutely. So I'll go ahead and share my screen and show you. And thank you for bringing up this issue, because there is a small change. So We're zooming in on map A1 here, and we're looking at the area around Lake Chabot. Go ahead and turn on that so you can see a little more clearly the park area. So what you see here with the black line is the current ward boundaries, okay? That's this line here. And what we've added is in the purple. There's just, that includes just a very small additional amount, I think, of parkland, and then right here as well. But due to the shape of the census blocks, it is quite difficult to divide Lake Chabot, because I'll show you the census lines. It actually is very, very large areas that would create very strange shapes. But in general, it's important to note that there is part of the lake that is in Ward 4 in all of these maps. So what I'm showing you is the boundary for all of the maps. It doesn't change from A1 to A2 to A3. And so there is this part of the lake and a little bit of the park as well. But if we look at the census blocks, here we go. You can see that the census block actually goes down the middle of the lake here, and then directly below it's a huge block with 757 people. So it would be very awkward to take in just, this arm of the lake. There is part of the lake in Ward 4 currently.
Yeah. So I think that's all makes sense, and it doesn't take parts of the map that I was never interested in, just a small part. And I know we have a really wonderful representative of that district and that he should continue to represent those parts. But to have just a little bit more of the park would be nice. I hope that he's agreeable with that as well, Director Wasby.
Is that in the form of a question?
Yes.
Sure. I am more than willing to share Lake Chabot. I'm a little concerned about the census tracts. I think I would be affected by any changes, and I have a great desire to continue serving here.
Of course.
And I'm not sure that we are professional enough to chop this up. I can see if we start doing this right now and it turns out that a few blocks here and a few blocks, I mean, if somebody could tell me officially, like a registrar of voters, that would suggest what that change would be, I'd be really interested. I mean, I'd be willing to do it, but for us to sit here and talk about it as amateurs, with the exception of our professional people.
Well, one of those professional people wants to comment.
Hi, Jason Rosenberg, Assistant General Counsel. And what's being shown right now on the map is really, I think, as far as you can go with including just the northern tip of Lake Chabot. To come in on any other side would, like Kristen said, would really start to affect individual census blocks, and to chop up individual census blocks is near impossible, and it would create issues with the registrar when we are submitting these to the county for elections. So this current structure would be the recommended as far as we can go, because we also do need to respect the statutory guidelines of contiguity and compactness. And I think this still is, in addition to the population balance, which is obviously legally required, the contiguity and compactness is another consideration. And I think this is, as shown right now, covers that.
Yes, and I totally agree with that. I had no intention of, I had no idea that line was the way it was. And to just be able, since there's a small portion of the north end already in this district, that it would just add a little bit more. And so this looks like it's what makes sense and addresses other people's concerns. So I'm okay with this, and I'm assuming Director Waspy, I think you're okay with this too.
With this as it stands right now?
That's
Yes.
what's being presented before us.
Right, yes.
This little teeny change. Okay, thank you. And then the other question I would have, if we could just look at the map down in the area where the district is increased just a little bit in the unincorporated and or Hayward blocks. You can see the pink going past the blue lines. Is it
Yes.
possible to just see a little more closely what the street names are in that area?
Yes. Let me turn off the census blocks here and we can zoom in and see that we have, to the extent possible, either followed the city boundary line, which is where you get these weird shapes. That's actually the Hayward boundary. But then over here where we have A Street, what we've done is try to create rather than this sort of jagged line here, this is just trying to be a cleaner boundary that follows a larger road.
Wasn't C Street part of this district previously?
No, I don't believe so. So this would be the current lines that you see here with that sort of bright blue color. And then this is the proposed. So we're actually extending it farther than its current, but it doesn't look like it incorporated.
So it takes it south to A Street.
Correct.
As the boundary line.
Yes.
And then it goes south. Could we move the map up just a little bit so I can see those streets?
And there we go. So then it goes down to Winton Ave.
And this is being done in order to just deal with population.
Yes, some of this is census block geography changing from 10 years ago till now. And some of this is just trying to, clean this up and follow the Hayward boundary. Let me see if I can turn that on. That would be places. So you can see now the red lines being also the city and place boundaries. So what we're doing is following city and place boundaries here. So, and yes, it is adding a bit more population for the purposes of balance. And then it's just trying to be a little bit cleaner here from Western Boulevard to A Street than these quite jagged lines here. So it's a little bit of both, of balancing population and cleaning up boundaries.
Does the district need any more population?
Under A1, District 4, I'll have to hold on one second and I will pull up the stats for that.
I'm just wondering if the district needs a little more population, but also I would be concerned if it took population away from the other district, which we don't need to do that either. But
yeah, so under A1, it is the deviation for District 4 is -2.56%. However, it's not the smallest district. The smallest district under this plan is Ward 1. So we don't, what that means is that Ward 4 could take in more population, but does not need to.
Okay. I was only looking at the map and how moving it over a few more blocks would include the large city park and the school, which is like right next to the edge of the line. I don't know if Dennis cares about that, but it just, I don't know, it just makes sense since it's a block away from the school and the park. It would make sense to have it in it, but I'm fine either way. I didn't know if there was more population needed that would address that.
Other directors? Director Eccles?
Hi. Yeah, I apologize. Having some Zoom issues today, but I was looking. I for some reason I did not receive the maps with my packet, so I was looking at the website, and the website only shows the northern part of my district, all the Contra Costa, not Alameda. So could you just pull up my district so I can see, so I can feel reassured that nothing has changed on the Alameda County portion of the district?
Absolutely. Give me 1 second.
I was mostly interested to know about Claremont Canyon because it's very hard to tell from the map what exactly is included and what isn't included.
All right, I think I have something you can see now. All right, so I've labeled the parks are here now, and then the darker line is the county line right there. See, that's this line here. And then you can see that Claremont Canyon is, I think entirely in Ward 2 here. Looks like the little part of it might be.
So okay, so the pink, okay, so the pink is the current boundaries of Ward 1. Is that what we're looking at?
So the current words aren't on here. Let me turn those back on. There they are. And so map A1 is not actually proposing any changes in this area. So this is remaining as it is currently. And where you see little color changes just around the edges, those are just census blocks that are shifting, but they don't represent actual changes to the boundary line. It's just a visual artifact.
Okay. Okay. Can you just scroll up and to the right a little bit so that I can see the, oh no, I'm sorry, I meant down. So yeah, okay. So this one, so all of this stays the same then. I guess it's just the census blocks that are jumping around, because I know that D and I both had it like I mean, I had some Oakland and he had some Emeryville, and but it looks like we've realigned it. So that's fine. Okay. And then can we just go back up to the top where we were looking at Claremont Canyon? I mean, excuse me, where we're looking at Kennedy Grove. Okay, so just so oh wait, pull it down so I can see. Yeah.
Hold on 1 second. Let me get this back up. I don't want to make you all dizzy. making myself dizzy here. All right, got it. This should be a better view. All right, so again, the black line is the current ward boundary here. And then what you're seeing in red or kind of orange here is what is the new proposed boundary for Ward 1.
Okay, so basically, as we've talked about before, it picks up the rest of Pinole and then the rest of Kennedy Grove, well, actually Berry Ridge Trail, so because most of Kennedy Grove was already in Ward 1, I think.
Correct. And so we're just pulling in that remaining part of Kennedy Grove here. I can zoom
It's
in a
land
little
banked.
bit.
It was a land banked part of Kennedy Grove
Right, right.
that was in Ward 7, and it makes sense to put it all in one ward.
Great. Well, thank you. Thank you, Colin. Thank you for that. And okay, and so on the, if you could go to the northern edge for just a second, Kristen. And then this piece where it's pulling back from the line, that just has to do with census tracts. Is that?
Yep, you're exactly right.
Did the border actually change between? I guess it's sort of interesting that, you know, you've got Hercules and you've got Pinole, and I don't think I had, or maybe I don't think I had Hercules before, but it looks like it's pulled back somehow from Hercules.
Yeah, I don't think that actually represents a change. Again, I think that we can look at the census block layer to see if that shows
That's a
us
ridge.
anything.
The new border remains on the ridge between Pinole and Hercules.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can see a slight movement of the boundary, but when you look closely like this, it's still part of the ridge. There's no people changing here.
Correct.
Oh, right. But I guess my question is, why is it changing? That was really my question.
The reason that you see this gap here is because the current ward boundaries were drawn using 2010 census geography, and the census every 10 years, they're updating and trying to improve their geography.
Right. Okay.
So what we draw is on the 2020. So it's not actually a difference here.
Right. No, I understand that. So just to put a finer point on it, I guess really what they've done is they have changed the census block to incorporate less of the ridge. Is that basically what we're looking at? So that more of the ridge is in now would fall in Hercules versus Pinole.
That's what it looks like. Yes.
Okay. Yeah. No, I know the census blocks change. So yeah. Okay. All right. I think, and this is the same in my district, I think is the same in all of the variations, I believe. Yeah. Okay. All right. Thank you.
Very welcome.
Director Wieskamp.
Thank you. I just want to make sure. Reading these maps is fascinating, but sometimes hard to figure out exactly. I obviously knew because of the growth of population in all areas of 5, I'm not sure Sunol grew, but maybe it did, that there was going to be a change in the border, particularly with 3. And I just want to clarify that in this map, Ardenwood would now become part of Ward 3. and Coyote Hills would stay in Ward 5. Other than that, I have no questions about the population change. As I said, I'm well aware of all the growth we'd had, both in the Valley where I live in Livermore and in the city of Fremont. Just was obvious. So if that's true, then I'm satisfied with what I see on map A3. And you can ask Dennis if he is satisfied. That might be asking too much. Oh, come on.
So we're basically asking whether A3 results in Ardenwood going to Ward 3.
Yes,
And
that would be the.
And
that
the
is
answer
correct.
is,
That would be the main change. And if Dennis was willing to take, who wouldn't take on Ardenwood?
Oh, without a doubt. With your permission, Mr. President, may I respond?
oh, please.
Sure, I'm totally in favor of that. It looks, I mean, Ward 3 looks like it needs more population, and I can't see going west because there's a bay out there, or east because we wanted to keep the Tri-Valley, and it couldn't go north, so south is the direction it should go. And
Okay.
I would be happy to have Ardenwood in Ward 3.
Okay, let's see if there are any more questions. Director Lang?
Yes, so what I'm, as I listen to everybody, what I'm looking at is map A3. And if we supported map 3 with the exception of removal of Leona Canyon from 4, this sounds to me like the map that we are talking about. Is that correct?
Well, we'll come back to what we think should happen. I wanted to focus on questions right now of Kristen. So we've got questions about A3 answered. I'll look around other board members. I have one. Kristen, if you could go back to the map, sorry to make you dizzy. I'm looking at the border, and it doesn't matter, A1 works, A3 works. I'm looking at the border between 6 and 7, where the words Clayton Ranch are, at that border there. And I think I'm gonna have, what my question is gonna come down to the same. There's a census tract issue, I think, that's causing more of that area to go into 7. Correct. So you see those two bulges there where 6, the existing 6 boundary is, those are being incorporated into 7. And I'm raising questions because I wanted to make sure. This looked to me like it did not impact any population. Do you agree with that?
The population numbers, I think I need to zoom in to see. Yes, let's see. Where's the number for, because we're talking about this area right here.
Yes.
That's in the.
And then there's a smaller section down below it.
Yeah. And maybe we need to zoom in more to see. Well, what this is then is a block of 20 people. So that's a small number of folks.
Oh,
But yes, this is a census geography change because when I turn off the current ward boundary, you can see the sort of pink or red line is the new block. And presumably there was an old block here where the black current ward boundary line is. And that also appears to be the case here. But now, oh, I just had it, 10 people. So it is a small number of people changing, but you're right, this is a census geography change.
so Ward 7 is growing by 30 people here.
That is.
Do they live in
We have
Concord?
solved the mystery.
All right, so this is ranch. These are ranch areas. But I thought that was going to be the answer. So that does it for me. I worked through my questions and issues at the first public hearing that we had, so I'm in pretty good shape. I'd like to move, if No other questions of Kristen. I'd like to move to public comment, Madam Clerk.
Yes, President Coffey, we do have one member of the public here to comment, and that is Kelly Abreu. Mr. Abreu, you have 3 minutes, sir.
Right. And we had an email from Kelly as well. So,
We had several.
okay. Several. Kelly, you're on.
As we are just hearing today, and for the last several meetings, this board is horse trading in parks. It's as if this was, they thought they're the East Bay Regional Park District, when in fact, they're elected by people, not by parks. And this is, you can think of it as the East Bay Regional Park Users Association District. All the discussions of maps A1, A2, A3, they all focus on parks. And it's emblematic of this statement, they're all nice parks. The most fundamental principle of fair representation embodied by the Fair Maps Act is that wards and directors should represent people and cities and census designated places, not parks. And that was embodied in the statement, as much as you can keep the Tri-Valley together, I'd appreciate it. That includes San Ramon and Danville. That's a great sentiment, keeping the Tri-Valley together, including San Ramon and Danville. But of course, all these maps seem to be grabbing, the first move was to grab Newark, 50,000 people of Newark, and throw them in with the Tri-Valley as opposed to Fremont. Now, we all know that Fremont has been divided forever, and that doesn't mean that it should be. The Tri-Valley should be kept together. Tri-City should be kept together, Fremont, Newark, Union City, just as much as the Tri-Valley. No one has ever explained why Newark should be part of the Tri-Valley Ward 5. There was no reason for grabbing Newark. And that, remember the comment about, I haven't heard anyone in Fremont saying to shift it one way or another. Well, obviously, yeah, people haven't been listening, because I've been asking to shift it one way or another for several months. Public Map 1 provides better representation, keeps San Ramon and Danville part of the Tri-Valley. It keeps Fremont, Newark, and Union City together. It follows the best practices of the Fair Maps Act. Those boundary cleanups in Hayward, those were strange. We don't need clean map lines. They should actually be following the county and city boundary over there. And to the extent practical, the geographic integrity of any local neighborhood community of interest shall be respected in a manner that minimizes division. Communities of interest don't include the gerrymandering that we are just been practicing. This board needs to get off of its fixation on parks and start fixating and focusing on the needs of voters and the needs of communities and the needs of people. This board is gerrymandering people for the sake of incumbents, gerrymandering people for the sake of park empires. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
We
you.
have no
Other
more
public
comments?
No other?
No, President.
All right, we'll come back to deliberate. And Kelly, I did review your submission, which we have all received, and it's labeled Public 1. So it's been in the mix, and we've all had a chance to look at it and appreciate your input. So let's go back to the board and see if we can make a decision based on any of the maps that are before us, numerous maps before us at this point. And where do people want to go? I heard Director Lane getting there, and I kind of cut her off on it. Do you want to?
I'm still there.
You're still here. Ann, did you want to lead off?
First of all, Newark is not a new addition to Area 5. Mayor Nagy and his staff and all, I have a long-standing relationship with them and respect Newark, and would have hated to have lost them from this area, because as far as I know, most of Area 5 has gotten along just fine, and I would hope that would continue. I like map 3. As I said, it seems to be fair, not big change, but change that does impact 5, because we've grown so much, and that's all logical. And so I knew it was coming down. So I think for me, map A3 is fine.
It kept the city of Dublin together, all of Pleasanton, all of Sunol, and I'm afraid the very large city that we all know, and Fremont had to stay separated simply because of the size, and Newark is still part of it. So as long as Dennis is pleased to see Ardenwood coming in with that area around there as part of 3, I'm pleased to see Coyote Hill staying in 5. I certainly support A3.
Thank you. That's helpful. Other board members? Director, let me see, look at my screen. I see Director Rosario.
Thank you. I'm happy with A3, and especially if we can return Leona Canyon back to Ward 2, it totally makes sense in a campaign, because I remember campaigning there, that it was nice to have that solid border of Keller Avenue and Skyline Boulevard to demark the differences between the 2 wards. And it sounds like Director Corbett is amenable to that. So everything else is I think is fine. So I would be in favor of A3.
Thank you. Director Waspy.
Sure, I would also be in favor of map A3. I think it's equitable and works. It looks like I have the biggest expansion of at least 20,000 new constituents, which I'm very happy about, and I think it makes sense.
All right. Director Lane.
And I too am comfortable with map A3. There are concepts of valleys throughout the inner valley, and when describing Ward 6, I describe it as central Contra Costa, the central valleys of Contra Costa, and include Saramone Valley and Diablo Valley. This is an area that's very similar, and people in Danville and much of Saramone tend to go north in their activities, with people in probably the south part of Saramone going south. So we always have judgments that we need to make, and I'm very comfortable with Ward 6 representing the central county.
Thank you. Director Eccles, any last comment or suggestion?
Well, I think map A3 is fine, so happy to go along with that. I want to also thank Kelly for his map. I appreciate the thought that went into that, and so thank you for participating.
Thank you. Director Corbett?
I think A3 is fine too, along with Director Rosario's interest in Leona Canyon continuing in District 2. And I'm sorry to ask this again, but could we just please look at the Lake Chabot line real quick, just to understand where it is? It's a little hard to understand because of those required map lines they're not just like straight, they're kind of like this. If we could just look at that real quick to get an idea and understand that Lake Chabot piece. I'm sure I'll be fine with it. I just want to be able to understand it.
I know it's a little bit hard to see the red lines or that are the census blocks.
So the red lines, there's sort of an orangish red
Yeah.
line.
Yes, exactly. Those are the census blocks. The black line is the current ward boundaries. And then, of course, we're looking at map A3. So we are looking at the green area being Ward 3 and the purple area being Ward 4. It may
So
be.
new line is the black line.
The current ward boundary is the black line. The new line is just the shaded color. So there's only a difference, for instance, right here next to the lake where we pull in this block of 24 people. And then this, you can see the census block here changed, that the line, the current ward boundary was going kind of through that block. Now that block is whole here.
And along the road.
Yes.
And then a little further north, that pink area, if you could.
So there's no population here. And again, this line that you can see is just the census block changing. But the only block that we moved is this block right here that says 24. That's the only block that we moved into Ward 4.
Can you show a little further north of this map? So I'm guessing this black line doesn't mean anything?
The black line is the current ward boundary.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so, but the pink above this black line, is that new?
Yes. This is the Leona Canyon addition, which is in A1, 2, and 3.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, that we said we could remove, and it would only change the total deviation by maybe 1%.
Okay, I'm sorry, I couldn't tell exactly where it attached to the lake. So again, the lake is, if you can make this go up a bit, the only change is that little piece right there.
Yes.
And also, does it include that little piece to the right of the black line?
It does, and that is just a census geography change.
Okay, and the line next to it is the lake.
And you're right that what happened is exactly that the Census Bureau improved their block and got it to the road. And we're seeing that all over California, that they're finally improving these blocks to follow the road.
Yeah, gotcha, thank you. And so also above the black line, that's not new or is new? Above where it says the number 24. Up a little
Right
bit.
here, right
Yeah.
here.
That's new, but above that black line is not new.
Correct.
It was there before.
Correct.
And it follows that black line.
Yeah, I mean, this is water, and where the block is in the water is really not a meaningful designation.
So that part of lake was in the district previously?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much.
Okay, I'm going to, if there are no other comments from the board, and I don't see any, I'm going to ask council to help us with the motion on this. It sounds as if the motion will be to approve map A3 less Leona Canyon, which should remain in Ward 2.
So if the board will indulge me for a minute, in order to do that, so staff was kind of trying to anticipate board being able to take action today. And we have prepared some additional maps. So the map that I'm hearing that the board is interested in is essentially A3, but the return of the Leona Canyon and the neighborhood surrounding that. So Kristen, do you have a map prepared that can show that? I think it'd be helpful to pull that up for a second so that the board is clear on what they're going to be adopting today, assuming you do want to take action today, which you can. It just, so if Kristen can.
It sounds like there's a clear direction. I just want to make sure that you're comfortable, given that we have to pass a resolution that references the map.
Yes, exactly. Yes, thank you. So the map on the board is essentially A3, but with Leona Canyon moving back into Ward 4. So the resolution refers to attachment A, and that's kind of what we're ready for as a placeholder. So I'll distribute this to the board and then this to the clerk.
Is there any concern that the language of that resolution was not in the agenda?
It's before the board now, and there's copies for the entire board. We're distributing copies right now. So it's present, I
It's
believe.
what's being shared on.
It's
on the
being
screen.
shared on the screen. We can
Okay.
post it and email it out if there's any desire to see it. It's and Kristen, could you maybe just talk us through the deviation and if it meets the requirements that you analyze to make sure you're comfortable with it?
Absolutely. So keeping in mind that the only change made in map A6 is returning this Leona Canyon area back into Ward 2. So what that does to the deviation on this, you can see on the second page here, is it brings it to 7.38%, which is right in the range of all the maps we've been considering. A3 total deviation is 6.46%. So it's less than a 1% change. It's still well within the range that NDC is recommending to our clients. We're recommending our clients stay under 9%.
And Kristen, just some clarifications. This A6, it has Kennedy Grove entirely in Ward 1, correct?
Correct.
And it also has Coyote Hills in Ward 5 and Ardenwood in Ward 3.
It has Coyote Hills in Ward 5 and Ardenwood in Ward 3.
Right, I just wanted to clarify that so everyone is understanding the direction.
Can we go back to the list that shows the population in each of the districts? Thank you. So there's no need for District 4 to have a little additional population, which includes that little piece of Hayward.
There's no need for it. It would not hurt the overall deviation, but it is not necessary.
And
Okay, so the motion would be to approve the resolution as it incorporates map A6 that's been presented today.
that is correct. So just to be clear, map A6 would be the attachment A that is referenced in the resolution, and the board can take action on that today.
Got it.
I'm available for any other questions.
Any further questions or observations? With that,
When we take the vote today, that's it, right? Even if we look at the numbers by adding a couple of blocks.
yes, this is the last part of the process. Someone like to make the motion?
So moved.
All right, the motion, and as I just described it, has been moved by Director Rosario. Is there a second? Second. 2 seconds, Director Wieskamp. Would Madam Clerk call the roll?
Yes, President Coffey. Director Rosario,
Aye.
Director Lane,
Aye.
Director Waspy,
Aye.
Director Eccles,
Aye.
Director Wieskamp,
Aye.
Director Corbett,
Aye.
and President Coffey.
Aye. Thank you. And thank you for staff that has been devoting months, maybe a year to this. And all the work's very much appreciated. And Kristen, your work is very much appreciated, and that of your company. And with that, we'll move on to item 3, acquisition. Oh, I've closed the public hearing. Is that sufficient? By just moving on?
Yes, thank you.
We have closed that public hearing and we voted. So authorization to amend a contract for services with Nichols Consulting Engineers for the Point Malate Trail segment, San Francisco Bay Trail. Sean Dugan.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. Good afternoon. I'm Sean Dugan. I'm the Trail Program Manager. First time I've been at the podium since before March 2020, so it's good to be back. And I will share.
Oh, did you say that? Okay, good.
No,
Yeah, you can't share screen. Who's doing?
that okay?
Yeah, who's doing that for you? Somebody else? Okay.
Okay. Thank you. Again, I'm Sean Dugan. I'm the Trail Program Manager. Good afternoon. I'm going to provide a quick update, an introduction, and I'll let my staff, Suzanne Wilson, take over the presentation for you. What you have before you today is an authorization, a request for an authorization to amend the contract for services with Nichols Consulting Engineers, or NCE, to complete design and permitting and for construction support for the San Francisco Bay Trail at Point Malate. NCE is a Richmond-based design and environmental firm that has led the design effort since 2016 on what we could describe as a bumpy road. But we're at a great place with this project at this point. When you stretch the design period out for 6 years, these types of amendments are inevitable. You run the risk of costs increasing due to material costs, service costs, and of course, project scope creep. And as we learn more information and more eyes on the project. And of course, the funding sources that we have acquired in outside grant funding also affect the design in trying to meet the conditions of those grants. It's not a new practice for the Park District or any other agency to begin design and seek on a project that's not fully funded. But this one is challenging in a few ways, which I'd like to highlight. But again, this is a good news item today. We're moving forward with this. This is what I believe the longest stretch of paved regional trail that the Park District will construct since I've been here. And I think since the turn of the century. But I posed the question to our historians in the audience and at the dais to recall when we have built 2.5 miles of continuous trail, paved trail. Basic challenges exist out there in trying to convert an industrial site that has been owned by many, many companies, including Chevron, the Navy, quarry site, turning that into a shoreline safe, accessible trail and shoreline access project. This has required every department at the Park District to touch at some point. It's not only that, it's Chevron and Chevron Corporation's property. And we are currently dealing with the third team from Chevron. The third time is a charm, it appears, because we have come to agreement on the negotiations of expanding our easement to the shoreline, not just the trail easement that was provided in 2014. This was due to liability concerns that we needed to address and safety and security concerns. But like I said, we are currently drafting those exhibits for that agreement, and you should see that before the board in the next couple of meetings, I hope, maybe the next month or so, for approval of that easement. That easement negotiation somewhat delayed the design because there were some elements that Chevron needed to agree to in order for us to move forward and make decisions. We also, the Park District had to condemn a private property in holding a portion of that property between Chevron and Richmond's property. And so that added some time to this. That's been resolved. We have to obtain permits from every permitting agency you can list, I think. And we thought we weren't going to have to work with Caltrans, but we received a grant that needs us to work with Caltrans. So we throw them into the mix. And last but not least, the sensitivity and the opportunity to protect and interpret the rich cultural history of this site, starting back from Native American inhabitants through the Chinese fish camp at the Richmond Beach, at the Point Malate Beach Park, as well as the Navy's ownership and the historic Winehaven district. As you know, the Park District agreed to design and permit the two segments of this project totaling 2.5 miles, one in our easement from Chevron as well as on Richmond's property. Pending, we would construct the whole thing at once if Richmond acquired the grant funding that they needed for their segment and we acquired the grant funding for our segment. Well, we were successful in that. We believe we have a fully funded project and we're getting close to getting that ready to bid. This item in front of you is sort of the final steps to making sure that we can finalize our design and get that support from our design firm that we need during construction, which is always needed when changes and things arise, which they will. So what you will see in front of you before, I should mention that we have entered into a cooperative funding agreement with Richmond to receive reimbursement for actual construction costs for their portion. And that was approved a while back by this board. So what you should see next is an easement amendment acceptance proposal in the next, like I said, maybe few meetings or a few months, led by our land department. And then after that, I predict that we'll be in front of you next to award a construction contract. And we hope to do that around spring or so. But I'll pass it on to Suzanne Wilson, a senior planner in my department. Suzanne's been at the helm since 2016, leading this design effort. And I just want to say that her diligence and patience and demeanor and her ability to develop relationships have prevented further delays, I will say. So I just want to give her credit for that. She'll provide you some details on our progress, budget estimates, funding sources that we're using for the project, and some scheduling estimates. And she'll give mention to some of our project partners. So with that, Suzanne Wilson, please.
Good afternoon, Director Coffey, members of the board. Suzanne Wilson, Senior Planner in the Trails Program. Thanks, Sean, for the great intro of the project, set up some of the context for some of the challenges we've faced in this project and some of the successes we've had recently as well. A quick overview, the project will construct 2.5 miles of the San Francisco Bay Trail along the shoreline of the San Pablo Peninsula, connecting the Richmond-Santa Fe Bridge to the historic Winehaven district, which is on the northern boundary of Richmond's Point Malate property, shown in this map in the shaded green color. As Sean mentioned, the Park District committed to and was the lead for the designing, planning, and permitting phase of the project. We also fully funded that phase of the project. Additionally, we secured funding to construct half of the project, what we call Bridge to Beach, connecting to the Point Malate Beach Park, shown in this map in the green and white. 1.1 mile of that section is within the lies on Chevron's property and is within an easement donated by Chevron. The city of Richmond was successful in securing funding for the northern half of the project, shown on this map in blue and white, and is entirely on their project. We refer to that as the Beach to Winehaven section. Moving forward, the Park District will manage the construction of the project of the entire 2.5 miles, much as we've done for the design and planning. We will be reimbursed for actual construction costs by the city. So at this point, the Park District is contributing $5,675,886 to the project. 57% of that comes from outside sources, from grants that we've been able to acquire from the Metropolitan Transportation Commission, who administers the Priority Conservation Area grant, from the California Natural Resources Agency, administering the Trails and Greenways grant, which is Prop 68 funds. California State Parks awarded us $900,000 via their Recreational Trails Program grant, and ABAG awarded us $150,000 from their Bay Trail program. Of the just over $2.4 million that the Park District has put towards the project, we use Measure CC and a little bit of Measure WW development funds to cover the planning and design phase of the project. And the additional funds have been Measure CC and Measure FF funds, and those will go towards construction. You can see the city has contributed $1 million of their own funds and acquired grants from some of the same grant agencies. We collaborated very closely to acquire those grants, and they're ready to move forward with construction as well. This project has come before the board quite a lot in the last 6 to 7 months because we're gearing up to actually get this thing on the ground, which is very exciting. In July of last year, the board authorized staff to enter into a cooperative funding agreement with Richmond that Sean referenced. In September, the board awarded a construction management contract to WSP out of Antioch. And just at the last meeting earlier this month, the board authorized a sole source purchase of a customized prefabricated boardwalk from Western Wood Structures. Which brings us to the amendment before you today. I want to go over a little bit of the scope that's included in the amendment. We've asked NCE to expand their design scope and to include safety improvements and placemaking features for about a 500-foot stretch of trail that runs parallel to the bridge shown in this photo in the upper right. It runs just to the right of the center of this photo, kind of between the bridge, which has a Caltrans Corporation yard underneath it, and the toe of the slope, which you can sort of see on the end of that photo, there's a concrete wall that runs along the toe of that slope. You can imagine a strip of asphalt through here with a soft shoulder would probably get a little bit lost in this industrial zone and would probably be driven over by the maintenance equipment and construction vehicles accessing Caltrans' corporation yard. So we decided to ask NCE to come up with some concepts and now incorporate into final design some features that will provide safety for the trail and the trail users, and that will clearly separate and delineate the trail corridor in this section. So if we look at the photo or the drawing there on the bottom, you can see that the design will include raising the grade of the trail. It will include installation of a retaining wall and probably some drought resistant landscaping to help protect the trail users, and to provide a little bit of a screening and buffer from the industrial zone there on the left and the concrete wall on the right. This has all been vetted with Caltrans. So we've made sure that we've allowed enough room for them to get to their corporation yard with the vehicles and equipment that they regularly bring through this area. We've also added permit compliance to the scope. NCE is really in the best situation to implement all monitoring and reporting requirements per the permit conditions, since they have helped us negotiate those permits. And this is something we anticipated doing all along. We just weren't sure what those requirements were going to be until more recently, as we're starting to see drafts of the agreements come in. NCE has also taken time to help us with our successful negotiations with Chevron by providing exhibits and making sure we've allowed room for construction and maintenance. They've also coordinated with regulatory agencies responding to additional requests and interest groups, including assisting us in our formal consultation with the Chinese Historical Society. And they've supported efforts to secure grant funding by attending site visits and providing exhibits, answering engineering specific questions. And lastly, they'll serve as the point of contact and coordination with Western Wood Structures as they begin to design and fabricate the 2 sections of boardwalk. NCE will make sure that the design fits all the project and permit parameters. The board adopted a mitigated negative declaration back in 2018. And we've successfully secured a permit from the California Department of Fish and Wildlife. And we're working on reviewing some of the agreements with the Regional Water Quality Control Board. And once we get approval to move forward with that final piece of design and the placemaking and safety improvements, we'll be able to submit final design to BCDC, which will help us secure the permit there, as well as the Army Corps of Engineers. And that should set us up to put the project out to bid early summer this year and begin construction in the fall. And we anticipate it'll take about a year to construct. So hopefully opening to the public fall of 2023. And I just want to also recognize some of the community groups, local agencies, property owners, and elected officials who have advocated for the project and provided letters of support for our grant applications, and have attended some of the meetings with regulatory agencies as well to help paint the picture for this project and show support. So in conclusion, the recommendation is that the board of directors authorize amending the contract for services with Nichols Consulting Engineers in the amount of $337,600 for the final design and permitting of the Point Malate Bay Trail segment of the San Francisco Bay Trail in Richmond. can I answer any questions that may have come up?
Questions from the board? Director Lang and then Director Eccles.
Thank you. What a complicated project. I wonder if you can show me on the map exactly where the boardwalk section of the trail will be?
Sure.
And the boardwalk is going to be made of wood, is that correct?
It is, yes. Yeah, so there are two
Well,
sections.
Some of them are not wood.
Let's see, I'm going all the way back to the beginning here. So this is a bit zoomed out, but there are two sections of boardwalk totaling 600 feet. And both of them are kind of near where the bubble that says proposed SF Bay Trail EBRPD easement, where that connects to the green and white trail. That's where the first one starts. So it's, as you go, is there a pointer? Oh, I can move the cursor. Oh, there we go. Right, there we go. How helpful is that? Thank you. So about in this area is where it starts. And the second one actually crosses just barely the boundary into Richmond's property. So there's a string of wetlands in this area, and that's what the boardwalks will be gapping to help minimize our impacts there. So in this stretch, the trail is actually in the railroad cut. So hence the wetland, the water's got nowhere else to go. So the boardwalk will actually elevate it a little bit. You'll still be within the railroad cut, but it'll elevate the trail by about 3 feet or so off the ground. And it will be made entirely of wood. Yes.
All right, and that section is all easement from Chevron?
Yes, except for the last about maybe 10 feet of it pushed into the city of Richmond's property, but the bulk of it is in our easement with Chevron.
Okay, and then I really liked that one slide which showed where the funds came from.
Oh.
So I'd like to get a copy of that.
Sure.
Thank you.
Yeah, that is a good list. Thank you for asking. Director Eccles?
First of all, thank you, Sean and Suzanne. Really a great presentation and really so excited to be at this point. I know this project has been a challenge and I appreciate all of your work in getting to this point along with all the other folks who were involved. So thank you. So really I mostly wanted to thank you and also call attention to the slide. So Beverly beat me to it, but I think it's really wonderful that we were able to 57% of the funds for our part of the project are coming from other sources. And then of course, we're drawing on some of the bond funds for our section as well. And, to be able to work with the city of Richmond on this, to put it all together in one big piece is really great. And I love the design that you showed for the way to delineate and make that trail safer going through that portion next to the Caltrans courtyard. So thank you. Really great work all the way around.
Thank you.
Director Rosario.
Yeah, Suzanne, well done, and Sean. Suzanne, I remember when you first came and I helped you brush up on your chainsaw skills. That seemed like a long time ago.
Yeah.
You've come a long way. My question is, which end are we going to start from? The Richmond side or the Regional Park side?
We haven't finalized the order of operation, but I think it would probably start from the Chevron side and move north. And some of it will be in collaboration, with the beach park is the only public access right now. So we've got to think about how to work with that and, keep the closure there if we can, minimal. And also some students from UC Berkeley are going to be doing some research project regarding the Chinese shrimp camp that was there, kind of in tandem. So they may start there while we build towards it, and then they'll be done by the time we get there.
Cool. Great. Thank you. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Director Waspy.
Thank you. Yeah, thanks, Suzanne and Sean. This is a great project. I'm really excited about it. I guess could you clarify we're going to split with Richmond 50-50 on construction related costs. That includes permits, design work and everything else, right? It's not just asphalt and boardwalks.
No, so we have provided the funds for the permits and the design piece of it. And Richmond is contributing funds strictly for the construction phase of their segment. So it's not necessarily 50-50 because we happen to have the more expensive segment because of the boardwalks, and there's more sensitive areas in the first segment of the project. So they will contribute funds for actual construction costs for the northern 1.25 miles of the project.
Okay, thank you. And Sean, I have to comment on this. Welcome back, Sean. It's been since March 2020, but I come away with great things every time you speak. I know it's the 23rd year of the 21st century. You're the first person I've heard refer to since the turn of the century. That's the first time I've heard that. And I'm really happy that you're the one that did it. Thank you.
Who will? Okay, Director, we scan.
The two S's have amazing patience. I really do, because it must be complicated, slow-moving turn of the century project. But congratulations, the people are just going to love it. Beautiful area, such potential. Congratulations and thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. My question is, who will operate the segment being constructed by the city of Richmond? Will we end up operating the trail?
As of right now, Richmond will be operating that portion of their trail, and we will operate our segment of the trail.
All right, and they operate the small beach park there, so that makes sense.
They do, correct.
In other words, they have maintenance people already familiar with it. Okay. Well, I was going to ask if we have members of the public that want to comment, and I see Kelly's hand up. Any others that we're aware of, Madam Clerk?
Kelly Avery, you have 3 minutes to speak, sir.
Thank you. This item is building a new trail. It's very unusual, as has been noted previously, that the Park District doesn't build too many new trails. But it's fascinating to me, the intersection, the tie, the link, the overlap between the engineering design of these things, these trails, and the political outcomes, political behavior of various groups, and how people operate on the trails. I'm talking about these bicyclist people that we just heard from earlier this meeting. And I thought they're operating from a place of politics and feelings, but no, there's a technical basis for some of what they're complaining about. And I just learned that for myself by running a little experiment called getting people on bicycles and running them up and down the East Bay Regional Park District fire roads and trails and multi-user trails. And what I learned is that the surface that you're building there in Point Malate and everywhere else, very important. We didn't hear anything aside from the wood on the boardwalks. There's little foothills that where we don't know what the exact grades are going to be. We don't know the exact material or surfacing materials that they're planning to build. Maybe that's all waiting to get designed. We'll just leave it up to those design engineers to come back and tell us what kind of materials they want to use as they go up and down those foothills. But it turns out to be very important. If you have a steep trail with lots of loose gravel, that's wonderful for your pickup trucks, and going up a hill somewhere in a regional park, it turns out that the bicycles don't do well on that. They do really badly on that. They do so bad that the bikes fall over, they skid, And then what happens is people are real smart. They end up going to surfaces off trail, narrow trails where the traction is better. So a lot of what you see with people going off trails, they're not adventure seekers, they're not thrill seekers, they're not lawbreakers, they're not scofflaws. They're just trying to avoid breaking their arms. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comments that we are aware of?
No, President Coffey.
Okay, I'm looking around the room. Any other director comments? Seeing none, I'll ask Director Echols to make a motion.
Yes, I would like to move to authorize to amend the contract for the Point Malate segment of the SF Bay Trail. Or I should say to amend the contract with NCE.
Motion's made. Second. Director Waspy seconds. Madam Clerk, please call the roll of the board.
Yes, President Coffey. Director Rosario.
Aye.
Director Lane.
Aye.
Director Waspy.
Aye.
Director Echols.
Aye.
Director Wieskamp.
Aye.
Director Corbett.
Aye.
And President Coffey.
Aye. Thank you, Suzanne. Sean. We'll move to item 4, Public Affairs Division, authorization to accept a gift from the Regional Parks Foundation. We are working on technical issues again for the benefit of those at home.
Yeah.
There's been some success.
Can't hear you.
Turn your microphone on.
We're here today to discuss the Coyote Hills basket exhibit restoration. Allow me to get to the first page of my exhibit here. A little background about this. Coyote Hills, the district has been in possession of a collection of very old baskets by Native American people here in California. For many, many years, they're in need of a container that will hold them to preserve them better. So a few years back, we did a little bit of study on the basket collection. Now, the basket collection, we hear, I'm saying Ohlone basket exhibit, but actually this is, the baskets are almost all Yocut baskets that were donated by Frank Lata, who was a ethnographer and historian who studied the Yocut Indians. The methods of making the baskets and how they were used is very similar to the kinds of baskets used by the Ohlone people near the Coyote Hills area. They're all mostly made out of tule reeds. We have in our collection 16 baskets, and they were made almost all by 3 generations of one Yocut family. There's actually 4 generations of basket weavers in the family, and one of whom is alive today and has visited the Ohlone Center and is in this picture that you see in the slide right here.
I say some of them are over 100 years old, but actually one of them that we know of is from 1880. And they have a storied history. Some of them were hidden in a cave for many years and then retrieved later by the owners, by the family who made them. The diversity of the baskets and the functions that they represent allows students to connect with pre-colonial times in a holistic way. Part of this exhibit shows how the baskets were made, and there's like an in-process part of the exhibit too. What you see here on this slide is a temporary exhibit. We started realizing, the naturalists at Coyote Hill started realizing that the baskets were starting to deteriorate in their old case. They were open to the air and they were sitting on sand. And people realized eventually that moisture was accumulating on the bottom of the baskets and mold was growing on them. Insects were starting to take up residence within the baskets. So in 2017, Creative Design Group, my department, commissioned a conservator report. We hired Angela McGrew, who is an object conservationist and conservator from Stanford, to do a study on all the baskets. We removed them from the exhibit case and brought them to CDG, to our sterile basket cleaning and renovating department. And Angela went through and did an 81-page report on all the baskets, all 16 of the baskets. With here's a couple of pages from them. Taking detailed pictures and noting every single broken reed on all the baskets. In one of these pictures, it's kind of hard to see, but there's a little bit of mold on one of the baskets that was cleaned off. She vacuumed all the dust, all the mites that were in the bugs that were in there. We learned to wear gloves when we touch the baskets and masks. So we have a kind of a new respect for how these baskets should be handled. At CDG, we store them in airtight plastic cases. So after the study was done, here I'm saying the baskets were visited by Ohlone elders during their time of creative design. Not exactly what these pictures are showing. They were visited by the Ohlone elders at Coyote Hills while they were still being displayed. And these are other Ohlone people coming to view the baskets. Even though they're yoke baskets, the Ohlone people, of course, appreciate the tradition of basket making. So as we realized, as we learned how to protect these baskets and how they should be exhibited, we started designing the new exhibit for Coyote Hills. So Creative Design Group, our exhibit design department, started coming up with not only the graphics, the sketches of how they would be explained to the people about how they were made and the traditions of basket weaving, but also the needs for a specialized case arose. It was kind of determined that they need to be stored in an airtight, humidity-controlled case in order to prevent mold and fungus from growing, and to keep pests out. And also, it has to be temperature controlled so they don't get too warm and allow other things to start living in them. Very, very specialized display case was needed. There's a niche in the classroom at Coyote Hills that is intended for the display of these baskets, and then a couple of freestanding vitrines where other parts will be exhibited. So, so the goal here was to design a case that fits into this niche that is accessible, but very rarely accessible because we don't want fresh air coming into the baskets. We want to dry out the air and put all the mold and suspended animation essentially. Along the way, we have all these baskets in boxes at CDG, and we intend to take them out, and if there are any more signs of bugs or infestation of any kind, then we'll freeze them before we put them in this final exhibit. That'll kill off everything before they're displayed. So recently, in 2021, a few months back, we sent out a request for qualifications to potential designer fabricators to build a new exhibit case. Weldon Exhibits was selected based on past expertise and experience. They've actually done an exhibit similar to this with an airtight case and a removable door. The needs are kind of special, like the door is very wide. So we need air rams to lift it up when we access the baskets. There needs to be a desiccant tray that absorbs moisture from the air, that is accessible by staff. So that has very particular needs. We're lucky to have Weldon's experience at hand that we can rely on. So today we're here to accept funding from the Regional Parks Foundation to fund let me go back a little bit and discuss this paragraph here. So a key priority of the Regional Parks Foundation is to fund projects highlighting a rich cultural history and diversity within the parks. The Ohlone Basket Exhibit Restoration is an exciting project for the foundation to fund, to protect, and preserve this valuable cultural resource, and it will enhance the environmental education experience for many school children attending programs at Coyote Hills Regional Park. Thank you, Juliana Shermer, for that. So the recommendation today is to approve a gift from the Regional Parks Foundation in the amount of $64,837 and to approve the award of an exhibit contract to Weldon Design in the amount of $64,837. And if anyone has any questions, I'm here to answer, and I also have experts at hand who can answer questions that I don't know, which are many.
Questions from the board? Director Wasby.
Thanks. I think this is a great idea. I guess the question would be, will these airtight containers make it easier to keep these preserved forever? I mean, or is there any maintenance? Is there any way for little mites to get in there that you referred to before? Is there, obviously there'll be less deterioration because there won't be any.
Yeah,
whatever occurs.
the idea is to make an airtight box that nothing comes in. And right before we put the baskets in there, we freeze them to kill off every last remnant of dormant creatures who are living in the baskets. And then once we have our plan right now, there's a few options for how to access this. Eventually we'll need to get in there and clean the baskets again, hopefully not for 10, 15 years. So the idea is to make this basket as airtight as possible, use light bulbs that last as long as possible so no one needs to get into the basket, and then have the parts that need to be accessed, the desiccant tray, for example, that dries out the air, will be accessed from a trap door in the bottom. So you won't actually be getting into the basket. We'll be very careful about, allowing air to rush in when we have the doors open. It'll be a very careful process. And then probably 15, 20 years from now, it'll be time to take the baskets out, reassess them, clean them again, and see how they're doing. But our strategy right now is to preserve these as they are as long as possible.
Thank you.
Director Corbett.
Thank you. Yes, and it's very nice. And thank you for the work in preserving these historic items. I was just wondering, does this also include for this display, this room in this building, security efforts to ensure that they stay at the park?
I don't understand the question.
Are there security efforts
security.
to keep them safe so people decide not to borrow them?
That's a very good question. And I thought of that actually just before I got up here. And yes, the door, the big glass door for this case will be screwed down. It'll be, nobody will be able to come in and open these up and reach in and touch the baskets. So yes, these will be the most secure items in that visitor center.
Thank you.
Director Lane.
Yeah, thank you very much for this. So this picture that we're seeing now is the way they are currently displayed.
That's the way that they were displayed before we took this exhibit apart. Yes.
Yeah, the way they were. So when they're put in self-contained displays, will there be 3 or 4 of them, 1 or 2, and where will they be placed?
We will build one container similar to this. It'll look a lot like this. It'll it'll look better, of course. It'll be redesigned, but there will be one main case in the niche alcove hole in the wall at Coyote Hills in the classroom area right now. And then there's actually 3 sections to this. There will be another freestanding vitrine, which exists on site right now. And we'll have basket making, kind of like an in-process basket being made uncoiled, to kind of describe that process, kind of more in the pedestrian area that's you can stand around and look into the vitrine. And then we'll have graphics on the wall too that kind of explains the history of the baskets or the process of being made. So we'll have a little bit of 3 sections kind of in the corner of the classroom at Coyote Hills.
So when we have the new visitor center.
That's a very good question that you're about to ask, Beverly. So part of the trick to designing this, of the many tricks that are necessary to design this, is that we went back and forth on this, but right now we've included in the design specs, this display case will be able to be picked up and moved out of the niche, the alcove, the hole in the wall, and then carried over into the new visitor center, which is a nice thing to do. Not totally necessary, because when the new visitor center gets funded, this will be a small piece of the funding. So it might be a better idea to make a different display at the new visitor center. But we do have the option of pulling this out of the wall, putting it on a truck and taking it away and putting it up somewhere else while the new visitor center is getting built, putting it back in. We can build the new visitor center around this box if we wanted to. So we did kind of include that into the design spec for this, yes.
And then you're calling it a Lonely Basket exhibit, but it's yoga.
This is a little bit of education that I painfully had before this meeting. But yeah, when we design the graphic panels for this, for example, the graphic panels right now say Native American Baskets of Central California. We will use a name similar like that. That's accurate. It's calling it the Ohlone Basket Exhibit isn't quite accurate, but for the purposes of this board meeting, we're installing an exhibit that pretty much replicates and talks about baskets as they were made by the native people here.
Thank you. It's a great idea, and I'm glad you rescued them.
Yeah. Director.
Yeah, insects, mice, other critters, they just love these baskets, I know.
They do, yeah. And by the way, they're in incredibly good shape. The 81-page report is kind of a long read, and there's a little bit of, it's kind of dry, but there's a lot of interesting facts about the baskets, and most of them are in very good condition. They look like they're new, and they're 100 years old. And also we've been told, although it's not really our, it may become a necessity, but there's another step that can be done where we evaluate get an estimate on the price, the value of these baskets. And for our purposes, for the district's purposes, they're invaluable. They're an invaluable resource. So for us, the evaluation on them for that is not really even a necessary thing to do, but they are invaluable in cultural ways, more so than money ways.
Well, and I will say people really love them, and the display at the Oakland Museum is a real draw. And I think they have, one of Linda Yamani's baskets at the Presidio. And so I'm delighted we have this many authentic ones that we can save and display. So thank you.
Director Wieskamp.
I think we need to thank the fact that we had them in that case. It may not have been state of the art, but it obviously protected them. And it was somewhat dark and hidden back in the background. And so maybe that was all to the good, because they're in such shape they are in now. No, I think what's really interesting, the naturalists already have Ohlone who come in and teach basketry, and they've had it at their special events too. So it will give everybody a chance maybe to try to see how hard it is to make a basket of any type, and be able to look at this and understand how valuable their techniques were and how well done they were to still be in this case that we're going to have, that's going to be moved out of the Nike building, which excites me too. I don't know when that's going to happen, but I think they deserve the respect of what we're doing here and keep them going for as long as possible. So what a great addition. Great, very valuable. So thank you.
Okay, so before we'll ask Ann to make a motion on the item, are there any requests for public comment?
No, there are no requests.
Okay, seeing none and no further comment. Ann, do you want to make this motion?
I would be glad to make a motion to pass resolution 2022-03, and that is a gift from the Regional Parks Foundation in the amount of $64,837 for the Coyote Hills Visitor Center Ohlone Basket exhibit and a contract to Weldon Exhibits to design, fabricate, and install the exhibit.
Seconded by Director Lane. Madam Clerk?
Yes, President Coffey, Director Rosario,
Aye.
Director Lane,
Aye.
Director Waspy,
Aye.
Director Echols,
Aye.
Director Wieskamp,
Aye.
Director Corbett,
Aye.
and President Coffey.
Aye, and thank you, Foundation.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jonathan. Yes, Dee.
Yeah, I just wanted to thank you for the presentation. Jonathan, I understand you're moving on from us, and I just wanted to thank you for your service and all the work and flexibility that you've given in the Park District. Your work is it's really phenomenal, and how you're able to pivot for different projects. And I just wanted to thank you. And so it's great that we've got an opportunity to see you.
Great. Thank you, Dee.
And thank you for your help to our friends at the Moraga Adobe.
Yeah.
I know
great.
they were very appreciative.
I'll be in touch with them.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So we will turn to the General Manager for actions taken by other jurisdictions affecting the Park District.
Great, thank you, President Coffey and members of the board. One very, very quick update. The details are in your packet, but on February 8th of this year, the Hercules City Council approved the redevelopment of the Franklin Canyon Golf Course, which is going to have the proposed RV resort project with 158 spaces for RVs, walk-in tent bungalow campsites, and a new clubhouse and a putting course. And you can, this is just to remind everybody, the Park District holds a conservation easement over a portion of Fernandez Ranch right next door. So we will be keeping an eye on that project. If you have any questions, staff can follow up offline. And Director Coffey and I had a chance to see it from our car on our site visit. So
That's one of our
yes.
one-on-ones.
Yes, and that's my update.
And locally around Hercules, I've been supportive of this project as a very compatible use with the future regional park, given that we do these as well.
Precursor to Ready Ranch, possibly?
No, no, that's habitat.
Precursor to the decline of Western civilization.
I was thinking this item would make Director Waspy yet another golf course turning to parkland. Thank you very much. And now we turn to General Manager's comments, which today are going to be in the form of a presentation on wildland vegetation by Program Manager Dina Robertson and Rangeland Specialist Allison Rolfe on the Livestock Pond Program. This is a presentation we had at Natural Resources Committee, and it was very well received, and we recommended that it be presented to the full board. So thank you too for doing this again.
It's very good.
Mhm. Here we go.
All right.
And there it is.
Good afternoon, members of the board and Director President Coffey. My name is Dina Robertson. I'm the Wildlife Vegetation Program Manager for the Park District. I am here with Allison Rove, Rangeland Specialist with the Park District, who is going to present to you an overview of the Livestock Pond Resiliency Program. I'm a little shorter, so. Yeah. Good afternoon, members of the board, and thank you for having me. I'm going to give a quick but detailed overview of the pond program, the livestock pond program. I just don't know how to get to the next slide here. Let's see. No, it's not working. No, oh, space bar.
Is it saved on the desktop?
Oh, there it is. Okay.
Is
It
that the
woke
right
up.
way?
Yeah, I think we're
Okay,
good
it just
now.
Probably had to.
Have to listen. Okay, thank you. So we're all connected to water. We're drawn to it as humans. And one of the most common water features you'll find on district lands are actually livestock ponds. But it wasn't always this way. Historically, there was wetlands and waters that occupied our lowlands. And over time, with intensive farming and urbanization, they've been highly altered. And ponds are a more recent alteration. They came about in the 1940s and 50s, built by ranchers, primarily for livestock water in our uplands. They have a lifespan about 20 to 50 years. And with the absence of our historical natural wetlands, they've almost mimicked what we've lost and have become important habitat for our wildlife. Here's a map of the distribution of ponds throughout the district. We have about 500 and counting as we acquire more property. Why are ponds important? Well, primarily they're a source of water for livestock and for our wildlife, with a number of other reasons. So we need water in order to graze. And these ponds, again, their primary function was to supply water in the uplands that are scattered throughout the landscape. And that helps with animal distribution and it allows us to manage our grasslands. As you can see, these ponds, they just look like mud holes and they're not very attractive. But when you get closer, they're actually teeming with life. You can find newts hugging each other or toads sunning themselves around the edges. They're really vibrant, even though they don't look it. And they support all sorts of native fauna. They're especially critical for our listed species, like the California tiger salamander and California red-legged frog, and our threatened western pond turtle. Our ponds provide essential breeding habitat for these species. And there's a symbiotic relationship with grazing too. Grazing activities in these wetlands create just the right kind of conditions for these species. We do face a number of challenges with the ponds, namely maintenance and repair and the cost associated with those type of activities. The most common issues we have from our ponds is accumulation of sedimentation over time, and also ponds getting choked with vegetation. This kind of results in a reduced water holding capacity, which may impact our grazing. And it also reduces the breeding potential for our species. We also have structural issues like embankment erosion or spillway erosion, which also reduces water holding capacity. and we have drought. So last year, we had a lot of ponds that didn't even fill with water. And we did witness Western pond turtle die off in some specific areas. Good news is these species have been around for millions of years and they know how to adapt. They've adapted to our Mediterranean extreme climatic events, and they do rebound after drought. So how are we getting this work done? We work with the Natural Resources Conservation Service, which is a non-regulatory federal agency within partnership with our grazing tenants. And the NRCS provides both technical and financial assistance for ponds, specifically in the East Bay. And along with NRCS and the local resource conservation districts, they hold some programmatic permitting, which allows us to do pond restoration work. Our local partners have also secured matching funds through agencies like the Bureau of Reclamation and the State Coastal Conservancy. There's a lot of collaboration, and that's how we get this work done. So work takes about anywhere between 18 to 24 months to get one pond plan to implementation. It does require a number of permits. Like I said, our partners have been helping us out with. And for the past 6 years, since 2015, we've restored 17 ponds. And it's cost about $845,000. It's an average about $50,000 per pond. As you can see, our partners have really contributed quite a bit of funding for these efforts. And I will say that over the past year, we've seen about a 30% increase in costs due to inflation and pandemic-related issues. Here's just an example of one pond restoration that occurred in 2021. On the left, you see a pond that has a breached embankment and that is filled with sediment. And on the right, you see the newly restored pond. Another example of a Morgan Territory pond. This was a pond that had issues with its embankment and eroded spillway. This is a California tiger salamander pond. I should also go back and say this pond at Pleasanton Ridge is this California red-legged frog pond. And we have a pond restoration work group. I think we've been working together for almost a year now. And what we do is we have been prioritizing our pond efforts. And we do that by identifying which ponds have specially listed species or the potential to have specially listed species or historically occurred, and what's the value for livestock water. Also, what does it cost or estimated the cost? And so far, we've identified 70 ponds. Pond monitoring really informs us on our prioritization in our decision-making. We survey about 50 to 80 ponds on average. And we also have help from university researchers. We've been fortunate to have funding to do this work. We have some drought relief funding. We have some money in the wildland vegetation operating budget. Again, I showed you earlier, we have matching funds from our partners and some bond measures. So next steps. We have 6 ponds in the queue for this year. That's the most ponds we've ever done. On average, we restore 1 to 3 ponds. That's been since 2015. We also would like to get 6 more ponds done next year. But this is an ongoing issue. And I guess in order to be good stewards of the land and protect these ponds and protect our species, we need to make it a priority and maintain them over time. So we still have our amphibians in the ponds breeding, and we still have these special species, and we can continue grazing. So we will need more funding to keep up with this work. We're also exploring different permitting options internally through our resource maintenance agreement. And that's all I have for you today. And if you have any questions, let me know. And we also have Ed Culver on the line, our fisheries biologist.
Well, thank you. I'll look to my colleagues for questions among the board. No? Oh, Director Rosario, thank you.
Thank you. Great presentation. Question, when the ponds dry up and, for instance, the turtle, do they have the ability to hibernate for extended periods? Or do they just?
I'm going to default to Ed Culver for that question, since I am not a wildlife biologist.
Okay.
Ed?
Hi, yes, Ed Culver, fisheries biologist for the Park District. Yes, our native turtles have evolved. We don't call it hibernation, we call it estivation. And they have evolved a, I'm going to say, method of when, as water dries, they sort of move into upland areas and tend to hide under like brushy vegetation and sort of in upland riparian zones. There just happened to be some particular instances last year that that was not possible.
And then how many of our ponds are spring fed versus have to be piped in?
Right. So we have a rough estimate of that. We have about 10% of our ponds are perennial versus 90% are seasonal.
Great, thank you. And do we ever, for if some ponds are critical, do we ever truck water in to supplement?
No.
I only asked that because Director Waspy will remember that at Redwood, back in the old days, we used to have 2 wildlife ponds in Redwood that we used to truck water to.
Interesting.
So we did a bunch of stuff in those old days. Thank you.
Yes.
Other questions? Director Waspy.
Thank you. And thank you for your presentation. And I look forward to going on your field trip with you in a couple months. I'm fascinated by this stuff. It's great. And as Director Rosario said, we'll tell that story later. But there's the good old days when you could literally work with a crew, create your own pond, tap into the water source and just turn on a faucet. And 10 years later, when we had a drought, we found it. But anyway, that's another story. But so my question is, you refer to all of our partners, and it seems it makes sense. The natural resources folks, they give you money, and universities provide research. But you refer to our partners as grazing tenants. What do the grazing tenants do?
Our grazing tenants are actually the glue that holds us all together. And they're actually the ones that apply for the NRCS program under something called EQIP. And so our grazing tenants are the ones that actually get the matching funds on our behalf and are able to help us get this work done. And then sometimes they even can qualify to do the construction.
All right, great. Thank you.
Yes.
Director Lane.
I think I asked this before, but do we have to get permits to dredge the ponds? If they've already been there with water in them and silted up?
Unfortunately, yes, that is the case because we're working in a waterway.
So what's the rationale behind that?
Making us get permits?
Yeah, making us get permits to get water in the ponds that have been here for 30 years.
Well, there's two parts. There's biological permitting, which is the potential of a take of a listed species. But then the second part is when we work in ponds, we do need a stream bed alteration agreement. And we also need a discharge waste permit from the Water Quality Control Board. So we just follow the rules. I don't know exactly why.
So Matt Grohl, Chief of Stewardship, I can add a little more to that. And I think part of it is with the water board and agencies, the concern is they look at, should this even have been there in the first place? I mean, is this an appropriate place for a pond? Or if you're changing it, is it going to be done in a way that's going to prevent any, that's why it's called a waste discharge requirement, any discharge of extra sediment when you're doing the work. So they look at the way the project's being designed and to make sure it's being done in a way that's not going to create more of an issue as you're maintaining it. They're concerned about any additional waste from that pond or sediment getting into the downstream water bodies when it's constructed. So I want to make sure when you're redoing it, it's stable and you have a good overflow for when water's leaving that, you're not creating more of an issue in the system. So they're all really regulated waters under the state water code. And so anytime we work on them, that's where the Water Board and the CDFW, California Department of Fish and Wildlife, come into play because of those 2 permits that Allison mentioned.
So when we're talking about trying to cut through green tape, are there efforts to keep those ponds going by having less permit requirements? Is that one of the things that we're working on when we talk about cutting the green tape?
Yes, I mean, these types of restoration projects are some we're working on. I mean, one other thing we're pursuing is, you remember hearing about our routine maintenance agreements. We have those in place. We have biological opinion. Those are the only thing we don't have right now is an incidental take permit to work where the species are present, where we have tiger salamanders or red-legged frogs present in the ponds. And so for those, we're working to get this incidental take permit to cover all of our activities. So we're working on the CEQA document for that now, and we're hoping to have that in place in the future, in the next couple of years. So that'll make it easier for us to do it. One thing we're doing it now is NRCS does have some of those permits, broad permits, and so they can help us acquire some of the permitting approvals. But we're trying to get one for ourselves, though. Right now, we do have the permit from the Water Board and the CDFW and the Army Corps and the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. And we have a CDFW permit for maintenance, but we don't have a CDF permit to work where the species are present. And so that's what we're working to get in place. And so once we have that larger permit, that should help streamline this process. But there could be legislation or other cutting the green tape things that would simplify that process further. So we're also pursuing that, talking to our legislative affairs staff, and then also following what's happening kind of at the state level on cutting the green tape.
Yeah, because it seems to me if we already have had, for instance, the incidental take permit in the past that lasts, 5 years or something, it ought to be easier to renew it because we already went through the initial application.
Yeah, well, and that's definitely the case. The thing that held us up before is the biological opinion. We needed to get, it took us a while to get that, years, and we've got that in place. We're looking to renew that in about 1.5 years, and we expect that to be a lot easier. The same thing would go for this ITP. Once we get it set up, the challenge is, like, we can get ITPs for individual sites. One thing that complicates this is we're trying to get an ITP for all of our maintenance activities throughout the entire district. So that includes ponds, but it also includes culverts, maintenance of trails, other things we do under routine maintenance, and for all the potential species that exist throughout the district. So that's what's made it more complicated, but you're absolutely correct. Once we get this in place, it'll be much easier to renew it every few years and to keep this in place in perpetuity.
Matt, when beavers build their dams, do they need to get all these permits? I'm just wondering, if we're looking for partners that come with permits, give it some thought, just
Okay.
when you get a chance. So, Madam Clerk, I see Bill's hand up, and I know Scott is here to speak, so we have at least 2 public speakers. Do you want to proceed with those?
Yes, President Coffey. Scott Bartlebo will be first and then followed by Mr. Wyrigi. Scott, you have 3 minutes, sir.
Thank you for the opportunity to comment today, President Coffey, board, and board directors and staff. Water supply for grazing operations has a significant impact on trail experiences, particularly for mountain biking and hiking. Reliable livestock water supply is critical to having a robust capability to manage cattle grazing and protect trails. Unreliable water supply limits when and where cattle can be grazed and has resulted in significant trail damage that takes years to rectify. Livestock ponds are a key component in grazing operations and trail protection. We understand that vegetation management is imperative and that cattle grazing is the most effective means. Crockett Hills provides the largest collection of legal mountain bike trail access in the Park District. These trails are used daily by both mountain bikers and hikers. This high-value asset, built at significant expense, continues to be damaged by cattle 7 years after construction. Seasons without soaking rain spare the trails, but periods, including this current season, have resulted in significant trail damage impacting both mountain bikers and hikers. I comment today to inform on the impact grazing infrastructure has on trail quality. I'm not aware of another best in district park amenity appealing to this number of park users that is subjected to this level of repeated damage. The park supervisor and grazer do their best to minimize damage within the limitations of the current infrastructure. Staff continue to work on short and long-term livestock water supply projects. They've also regraded damaged trails, but it has limited effectiveness with the expansive clay soils and damage persists. The trail community is very thankful for their efforts, and the situation would be much worse without them. We ask for your support for any additional resources that staff need to prevent trail damage while managing vegetation at the same time. The current infrastructure is not adequate. Bicycle Trails Council volunteers in partnership with the Trails Program and the park supervisor have provided over 1,600 volunteer hours of trail maintenance at Crockett Hills over the last 4 years. Combined with park efforts, this still isn't sufficient to properly maintain the trails, let alone remediate cattle damage. It's incredibly disheartening to volunteers to see this asset repeatedly damaged. Many of our volunteers are from youth mountain bike programs. They are the next generation of park stewards, but this is the message they get. Some riders and hikers choose not to return until the trails are in better shape. We ask that you increase the priority and resourcing to protect these trails and better serve park users. Respectfully, Scott Barbaugh, Advocacy Director and Lead Trail Steward at Crockett Hills for the Bicycle Trails Council of the East Bay. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Warigi, you have 3 minutes.
Bill, you're muted.
Yes, thank you. This is William Uregi, Mission Peak Conservancy. I have followed the grazing in East Bay Parks since David Ames was the grazing manager, which was a number of years ago, followed by Denise DeFries and the current 2 people that are in charge. Through that time, I've been pulling records from the park district in terms of what grazing is occurring, how that grazing is monitored, and what the results of it is. And I want you to understand that grazing at one park, which is Mission Peak, has consistently fallen below the threshold of what is acceptable. And this is based on park district documentation. So when you pull the RDM records and you find that, in fact, pastures are grazed below the minimum of 10 RDMs, 10 grams of RDM at the end of the grazing season, it's a problem. And when park staff notate this in letters to the grazers and say, hey, you got to move the cattle to keep the RDM levels higher, and then the next year that same pasture is overgrazed, it's a problem. So when you look at the pictures that were provided to you today, and these are the pictures of ponds, and you look at the pictures and people are standing on the grass and there is no grass around them except under their feet, that's a problem. Because based on the park district's own record, you should have 6 to 10 inches of standing grass at the end of the grazing season in order to maintain that 10 grams of RDM. The reason RDM is important is because grass holds moisture. So when you're talking to people like the biking gentleman that just spoke, and he's saying sedimentation and trail damage occurs, yeah, it occurs. It occurs when you have water running off the pastures impacting the trails. And the water runs off the pasture and impacts the trails because you don't have enough grass left at the end of the grazing season to hold moisture. It's a very, very simple equation. It's one the park district has understood for years, and it's in all of your documentation on grazing. You have to protect the pastures. You have to protect the pastures because the pastures protect the park, pastures protect the trails. So when I walk the park with visitors, and you can stand and you can't see wildflowers because they're all eaten down or trampled, that's a problem. It's a problem when the district doesn't follow its own regulations. So 10 RDM at the end of the grazing season is a very simple equation. And if you have pastures in a park that routinely are violated, that's a problem. And honestly, I don't care if you're doing it to protect the neighbors. If you have a rule, please follow the rule. And if you routinely counsel people that they're overgrazing, please do something more than just telling them they're overgrazing one year and the next year sending them a letter or sending me a letter saying, oh, we're not overgrazing, we're reducing the thatching. I find that repellent. Overgrazing damages pastures and it increases the probability of invasives like thistle. Let's protect our pastures. Let's protect our parks. It's good stewardship. Thank you.
Thank you. That's the last speaker.
No other public comment?
No, sir.
Allison, the issue out of Crockett Hills, I've been aware of, and my understanding, if you can confirm it for me, is that the drought has made it, and the lack of infrastructure, as Scott described it, that results from drought or the inability to keep ponds stocked, makes it difficult to rotate the cattle around what would be ideal. And that has exacerbated the cattle damage to trails issue. Is that what's going on in Crockett?
Yes, so at Crockett, there's, maybe this is better. Okay. At Crockett Hills, yes. Can you hear me? Yeah, okay. There's a 4-pasture rotation. And last year with the drought, we had to switch things up, and that top pasture, which is where the Sugar City Trail kind of starts into the middle pasture, did get damaged this year by cattle because we got 8 inches of rain and they were in that location. We don't have any water infrastructure in the top pasture except for one pond, which is actually in the queue for 2022. So that is one of the ponds that we're restoring this year. Yes, and then we also drilled a well, but it wasn't successful. So we're seeking another option. We're gonna try again.
So it's being worked on.
We are currently working on that, and we've been working with their grazing tenants who have actually been working with Scott and Dave Kendall, and we are aware and will be changing the management this year so there's less impact to those trails.
Yes, I know we greatly appreciate all of the work the Bicycle Council puts in terms of their volunteer efforts and out there. Director Rosario.
Yeah, I just want to make comment that I think the biggest complaints that I get on trails is the damaged cattle do on the trails. And I noticed there was in Lafayette's Ridge staging area, the trail there, there's 2 trails. One, the main trail, it's got some hardscape. I've been out of the field too long. I can't remember. They're like like stone or interlocking blocks. Yeah. And that area where the cattle cross, it seems fine. But then the other trail that didn't have it was totally messed up. In fact, I took a picture of somebody who lost their boot in there. So I think that's something we need to look at, because it really does, it does impact the use of our trails on it doesn't matter what mode you're in, it affects your experience in the park and actually getting access to it. And if you're have any kind of a disability, it's really hard to get around those really soft spots with these huge pock marks like moonscape. I even had trouble getting past one of them. So I think we should be addressing. So thank you.
And I know the park operations, the rangers go out immediately and start working on trails when they're damaged, but it's what we hear. We get after every significant rain, we get the emails from people who are upset about the damage to the trails. And they ask the larger issue, why do you have cattle in the first place? And what I find useful in responding to those constituents is by giving them the link to the Park District's website that's devoted to why we do grazing and all the research that's been done on it, the historic role that grazing plays in the ecosystem. That website does a really good job. And I usually don't hear back from those folks questioning why we have cattle there, both because of course, the wildfire mitigation that they do by nature, but they're also an important part of the ecosystem in these rangelands. Other comments? All right, I think we're ready to move on. Thank you.
Thank you.
Very nice presentation. General Manager, anything further?
No, nothing further.
Okay, item 7, announcements from closed session. Council.
Thank you, President Coffey. We have one item to report out. The board approved or authorized a side letter rather to allow a police services technician a uniform allowance. And that's it.
Okay, thank you very much. Board committee reports, executive committee. I have nothing to say to augment the minutes. So we'll move to our last item before adjournment, and that is board comments. So we will go around the dais, or I'll ask Director Corbett, do you want to go first?
Sure, I'd be happy to. Thank you. There's not too many things that were done in the last few weeks, although one thing I will say, it's getting close to campaign time and there's all kinds of campaign events out there going on that people are invited to. I won't speak about them specifically because of course we can't talk directly about campaigns at a board meeting, but it is a busy time as we look at these things. I had the opportunity to attend a meeting with the facilitator who's working on putting together information on our wonderful general manager, which we'll be doing more on as we go along. And on Monday the 7th, I was asked to attend the San Leandro City Council meeting to receive the resolution we were presenting that night on Women's History, the Women's History Month resolution. And so that was kind of fun, especially since I was the first woman mayor to be elected to the city of San Leandro, to be elected to that position. And then on the 8th, I attended the Operations Committee meeting. And let me see, is there anything else? That's it as far as events to go. I will just remind everybody, I know we already know this, that this is Women's History Month, and we will be having a event coming up on the 29th of the month, the Women's Leadership Conference here at the East Bay Regional District, East Bay Regional Park District. I'm looking forward to attending that. So thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Director Corbett. We'll go next to Director Lane, then Wieskamp and Rosario.
Hey, thank you. Here's a few of the things that happened directly connected to the Park District since the last board meeting. One is a very enjoyable field trip that we took to Bay Point, Thurgood Marshall, and the Lafayette Moraga Trail. Kind of inclement, almost good weather, and the opportunity to see the area south of Bailey Road at Thurgood Marshall with the wildflowers just starting to come out.
Beautiful. Really
Told you what a wonderful piece that is and what a great park it will be. Does need some work, but hopefully that will open in a couple of years. And then after that, I did that weekend take a walk on the Lafayette Moraga Trail, just go on the Hello Trail again. That was one of our first trails and still is extremely popular. And I attended the executive committee, which was interesting to talk about Jewel Lake and the Hayward Shoreline. And had extra Zoom meeting with Anna Marie Guerrero and Brian Holt, because the last Natural and Cultural Resources meeting, my power went out and I missed her presentation. So I had a chance to talk to them yesterday about that. Then I had I had a meeting with one of the new San Ramon council members, Mark Armstrong. Attended the mayor's conference where we enjoyed our GM's presentation on giving a report to the mayor's conference in Contra Costa, and people were very complimentary about it afterwards. Had a chance to talk to the board of the Regional Park Association, whom I haven't spoken to in quite a while, and they had many questions and reassurances that they were definitely friends and not critics, which is what they always say. But they are very much involved in supporting the park district and wanting things to go well with the park district. And we had a Friends of San Ramon Creek meeting doing some 2022 plans. I do want to thank staff for that great report on the tree mortality. The legislative work that was done for interviews that were set up for us this last month. There's a lot of work that goes into those, and I really appreciate what they do. And then to say, well, I received the expense of the attendance of meetings flyer that was evidently revised some, but it still doesn't quite fit what I need to write down. So I sent the clerk a note that said, maybe I'll just send you information and let you figure out how to put it in the form, because it didn't work. It really didn't work for me. And then finally, I am looking forward to something getting set up so the board can talk about our goals for this year. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Ling. Director Wieskamp.
Bay Point, I hadn't been there in years, and it was so nice to see what has been done there. Oh, I'm sorry. Bay Point was so impressive to me because I haven't been there for so long. What they've done there to make it accessible, and the area doesn't have that many locations park-wise, so I think this is so significant for the locals, but I think it's well worth going to, no matter where you are. And Thurgood and Marshall just blew me away. You want to see something that's spectacular? We want to get donations, take them out there in the spring. It was just gorgeous. It was magnificent. And aren't we lucky the public has it? We really are. I had a one-on-one with the general manager, always interesting what I find out, both good, bad, and ugly, but mostly good. Attended the Alameda County Special District Association, and then LAVCO. I don't know if you're aware, but the county has been asked and are considering putting Measure D on the ballot this fall. At LAVCO, we had commissioned and received a report on Measure D, and this was specifically because of the agricultural community, particularly wineries, but also olives and other things, and whether it was working or needed some change to make it successful. You may not be aware of it, but vineyards take a while to survive and be useful. And then you have to spend a great deal of money replacing the whole thing, and they don't produce for a while. So this was an interesting study, and we're looking to work together on language with the county on Measure D, if we think it is a positive, and I do think it is. I think the big concern, and I told them on this in Livermore, there's a city council is considering a measure that would extend sewer service just for wineries, that kind of ag stuff. And I think people are going to have to be assured that the language is quite clear that it could not be changed to housing. I spoke with a friend about my tour at Thurgood and Marshall, and I think we want to get a recording of what happened
She was approximately 10 when this happened. She happened to be looking out her picture window in Petaluma when it happened. She said she had never seen anything that impressed her more in her life. So I think that would be whatever the archives are about that. That's a one-of-a-kind experience. And she said, by gosh, if she could get on a bus tour to see it, she would look forward to it. But as soon as I mentioned it, she's like lit up and said, I remember. Now, I don't know how many people were out there in Petaluma looking out their picture window, but there was at least one young lady who remembers it. And that's it. Thanks.
What is Measure D about?
I'm sorry.
As a Contra Costan, I'm not up on Measure D.
Measure D is in Alameda County, and it was to protect open space and enhance agriculture too, but there were tight rules about where buildings could be placed, the size of them. And these are the main concerns of the agricultural community. But they said basically it's done reasonably well, but not what they expected in growth. You need a certain amount of wineries that are sustainable to be successful. And you need some other amenities that attract people to come. And so these were all concerns of the community, because obviously there are many small wineries as well as the large ones like Winty's. And I think we took it seriously, but I think they're going to have to be very careful about language, because I still certainly, I donated money to fight, honestly, the solar plant up in North Livermore, because I'm very concerned that the county was going ahead with that. And it covers a huge amount of territory and was visible from some of our parks. There are other places you can put solar. I've got it on my roof. Lots of other places it's good. But I think we need to pay attention if we want it to stay open space. We want it to be agricultural.
Makes sense. Thank you. Thank you for that. Director Rosario. Then Director Wasp.
Okay, on 3-2, I attended the Oakland Commission on Aging retreat, and I represented, I was part of the breakout session for open space stakeholders, and wonderful an opportunity to give my my take on how to make open space available to our aging citizens in Oakland. And then on 3-3, attended the Lake Merritt Breakfast Club, and we got to hear from Jennifer Caban of Alameda County Early Childhood Education, and Angela Howard of Lotus Bloom, and just the state of early education in the county. And I learned something that I didn't know, that by the age of 5, a child's brain is already 90% formed. And that's why early education is so important. And so I think Alameda County has been able to subsidize 14,000 children that have been able to attend that, but there's still 40,000 children that still need it. So really important. I think there's going to be an Alameda County measure coming up soon. And then I attended the meeting with Christina and Lisa regarding Jewel Lake and the Hayward Marsh Restoration Project. Thank you very much. That was very helpful. And then the board tour was just absolutely wonderful to be able to see Bay Point just prior to the before the construction, and then seeing it after, just wow. And then of course, Thurgood Marshall was just absolutely beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. And of course, I love the bridge at Glenside. And then on the 7th, I gave a presentation to the Piedmont Gardens, and very well received. In fact, they want me back, and they're going to try and arrange a tour for Judge John Sutter to see if they can get their van closer so that they don't have to walk all that way from the parking lot. They'll give you a call probably after April 6th. They're having their meeting then. but they want me back, and I said I would be happy to, and so I'll be back there somewhere around the 21st or so. And I just wanted to thank Carol Johnson and Dave Mason for putting together my slides, and present. I don't know if Judge John Sutter and his wife Ellie live there their last days, and they're very well loved there, and it was very appreciative. And then I attended the Operations Committee on the 8th. And then on the 9th, I attended the Alameda County Special Districts Association, and we heard a very, very interesting talk from Dr. Kennedy. He's the founder of OSI, which is a software that actually manages the grid in the state of California. And it was a fascinating talk. I just. It doesn't manage the grid. Yeah. Yeah, no, it was very interesting. And then, although he did say California is in good shape, because we do have so much alternative energy, but there's just enough, what he calls stable energy that it offsets when the alternative energy goes down. And then attended another Lake Merrick Breakfast Club meeting on the 10th. This was by Chris Bradburn, who from OSA, which she developed a curriculum for that sixth graders actually developed and give, and it's an interactive and it's ongoing, and it's all on the history of the city of Oakland. It's fascinating. I mean, what they've done is just wonderful to see these young kids give this presentation. They're really into it. I mean, it goes back from the beginning of time to present. And then on the 11th, executive committee meeting, and then on the 15th, I'm here today. Thank you very much.
You're here. Thankfully. Director Wasby.
Thank you. I met with Lisa Gorgon, Matt Grawl, and Chris Barton to talk about the complexities and challenges of the Hayward Marsh. I won't comment on that. It's an interesting project, and anyway, on March 4th, I did the board site tour. Was great to get out. Great that staff did such a great job of coordinating that. It's wonderful to get out and see all these great places. On the 6th, I went to the heart of the beast. I went up to Crockett Hills, met with Scott Butterborough, and saw the bike bell program. And well, it's going to be a real challenge. That's a busy place and a very, very popular place. On March 8th, I represented the East Bay Regional Park District. I recall as long time ago when I was a student, I went to CPRS, California Parks and Recreation Society. I'd go to their conferences as a student. And when I was with the Hayward Area Recreation and Park District, I went as a board member and has gone as a board member of the Regional Park District. And now I've gotten to the pinnacle of the area. I was invited to go play golf for one day. And that was my participation in CPRS. But I heard it was well attended by, and Regional Park District people were well represented. On March 9th, I attended the Alameda County Special District Association, and you're right, Dee, Mr. Kennedy or Dr. Kennedy was fascinating and scary at times with some of his predictions. On March 10th, I did a great hike. I went up to Martinez and hiked the George Miller Trail from Martinez to Port Costa. And it was God, it's beautiful up there. Just such a great use of that old road. And that's it for me. Thank you.
Thank you, Director. Sure. Oh, feel free.
I left out one thing. On the 9th, the evening of the 9th, I attended the Alameda County Mayor's Conference, and I got to hear Sabrina give her talk. And it was so refreshing because she knows everybody already. And it was just like a kind of a homecoming week. And she's very well received, very well respected. And it was nice to see that that kind of rapport with our city mayors in Alameda County. So wonderful. Thank you.
So you did both mayor's conferences? Because I attended the Contra Costa one and you also did Alameda.
I did. I think they were both last week, if I'm
Oh.
remembering correctly, or 2 weeks ago. Yeah. And the city manager, and I have the city managers for both counties coming up.
Yeah, I was gonna say it went over superbly. There was a lot of comment afterward. One, nobody had any questions. But what happened was everyone was saying how wonderful the presentation was and good old Park District and glad someone's there who just. So you have a rapport with the city types for some reason. I don't know. On the 3rd, I attended a meeting with ASD staff, as my colleagues have mentioned, designed to help them prepare for the Jewel Lake and Hayward Marsh presentations. On the 3rd was the aforesaid Contra Costa Mayor's Conference. On the 4th was the board field trip that everybody has spoken to. On the 4th, I also attended the Contra Costa County Watershed Forum and Friends of Marsh Creek mixer at Big Break Visitor Center. This was designed to try to reinvigorate the Marsh Creek group, the Friends of group. And it was nice that they were able to hold it at Big Break, and it was wonderful to attend. On the 5th at Black Diamond Mines, I attended a Youth Community Connection Day. And this was sponsored by the City of Pittsburgh Police Activities League, POW. And staff had asked me to attend and support our naturalists with a program they designed for the kids brought together by the Pittsburgh POW. And as you would imagine, the most popular facet of Connection Day were our equestrian horses and a lot of pictures. And thank you for sending them, Chief. The 6th, I went on a hike of about 7 miles circumnavigating Fernandez Ranch. And it was sponsored by the Greenbelt Alliance and led by a Mount Diablo Association naturalists. On the 9th, I attended an actual meeting of the Contra Costa Watershed Forum. On the 11th, I also attended the Board Executive Committee meeting. This past Sunday, the 13th, I met with property owners next door to Lone Tree Point Park out in Rodeo. Apparently there are BCDC issues out there, and the adjacent property owners wanted to show me what we're all are all being subjected to by BCDC. And on the 14th, I attended the pre-meeting planning meeting with the general manager and council and deputy general manager yesterday. And I also am here today, Director. Thank you. So that does it for me. Director Wieskamp.
I'm not sure I did attend Operation. I was so enthusiastic about third gold Yes, you were. But I want to say that everybody, we ought to ask the Alameda County Special District if they recorded. I think a lot of people would be interested in finding about the grid issue. I mean, I had no clue it was so bad, and this man seemed to know exactly what he was talking about. So if we can get it so everybody who wants to see it could watch it at their leisure, it's well worth it.
Director Corbett.
And Mr. Director, Mr. Chair, I forgot to mention this, and I know many of you know that Thursday is St. Patrick's Day, and I just want to wish you a very happy and fun St. Patrick's Day.
All right, I'm not wearing green. Director Lane is wearing green.
I know, I forgot to wear green too, I'm wearing blue.
Anything else? Management, staff, board members? I do want to note that our Ukrainia Park out in Garin is getting quite a bit of attention from on social media, and it is being visited because of the circumstances. Yeah, it's on my list to do shortly. Thank you all. Good meeting. I guess we will stand adjourned. Thank you.